What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Primetime Sports Podcast, hosted by Joey Larry. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone had a great break. My first time back in the studio. In just about a month now. I was in the studio right before I left on the last day of finals and the last day or two. So, first day back in the studio, and I have a very special guest. My boy Dylan, who's been my boy since freshman year. Biggest Giants fan I know. The kid knows all sports. He was a sports historian. He knows everything about sports. But the Giants, that's what we connected on right away, freshman year. He's from New York. So obviously being in New York, it's a great time to be a Giants fan, being from there. But I've been friends with Dylan since freshman year. We went through the thick and thin of the Giants, of the worst days of being a Giants fan. Now we're obviously on to better days. So Dylan, introduce yourself, say what's up to everyone.
Alrighty, thanks for having me, Joey. I'm excited to be on. I've heard so many good things about us, so
I'm psyched. I'm psyched that you came in the studio, and me and Dylan get lunch every Friday. We talk sports like we always do. Just go in, no agenda. We just talk. Just talk sports. Agenda-free Fridays, as they call it, at Felger and Maz. 98.5 of Sports Time.
We've got a little bit of an agenda today.
We do have an agenda.
We're talking Giants. We're talking Giants. We're starting with the Giants, of course. What a win Sunday. I don't even know how to put it into words, because honestly, I almost had a heart attack multiple times during that game. But I'll say this. We can start out with how good the offense looked. Because one thing, I know the Vikings defense wasn't good. They're 31st in pass defense. I know they're not great overall in the year. They're pretty low in scoring allowed per game as well. But the offense looks so crisp. We look like a legitimate offense that's like a top 5 in the NFL with how well we move the ball. I know we're playing 31st defense. I get that. But considering how good Daniel Jones looked and Saquon looked, that was the best games of their career. I know Saquon didn't have as many touches. He usually does, like 9 carries. But what did you see from the Giants' offense in that game? I think the defense was obviously a great thing to talk about as well. But that offense was so crisp. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff to talk about. And I think we should start with talking about the rushing attack. Like you said, we didn't really give Saquon that many carries, and just looking at the box score, it's sort of confusing, but a bunch of designed runs for Daniel Jones, which is something we really didn't see much of until this year.
Yep.
A lot of Jones using his legs to get out of bad plays. We were seeing some that we saw a few times was Evan Neal giving up pressure to Daniel Hunter on that right side.
Tough guy to cover.
Yeah, which we'll get to, but Jones was navigating pressure well. He was escaping the pocket. He was making throws out of the pocket. Yep. He was using his legs to get first downs. I mean, I think basically anything you wanted to see Jones do, he did.
Definitely.
This game.
I would agree with you there. The one thing that I saw from Jones that was perfect, and he's been getting better at it every single year, is pocket presence and knowing awareness. Absolutely. Like you said, he knew when to scramble. And a lot of those weren't designed runs. He did it probably, 10 designed runs, 11 designed runs, right?
I think it was 7 or 8.
7 or 8, and then probably 10 scrambles, right? Because he had 17 carries. But he knew when to scramble. And I honestly don't know why the Vikings didn't put a QB spy on him after the 5th or 6th one. Because I thought at the end of the day, you got to realize, DJ just keeps running. You got to put someone on him. But I think it's because they were worried about the Giants doing crossing routes, which the Giants do a lot of. Richie James does a lot of crossing routes, Isaiah Hodgins. So they're using a linebacker in the middle of the field rather than probably using it as a QB spy. But Saquon. What
again,
a game.
Yeah, and just a perfect exhibition for what makes him special. Again, only 9 carries on the game, I believe?
9 carries, yep.
But 2 rushing touchdowns, dominating the red zone like usual, and I believe 9 catches?
It was 9 carries for 53 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 receptions. He had 6 targets, 56 yards.
5 receptions.
Hodgins had an unreal game. Hawkinson had the 10 catches. Hawkinson was once again a threat for us to cover a tight end, which that's been a problem now since freshman year. It's been more than freshman year, but I remember since freshman year we were saying we have to learn how to cover a tight end, get a linebacker that can actually play some defense and coverage. But I loved what I saw from Saquon. His first carry was a 28-yard touchdown. That was his long of the game. Had a burst in him. So did Daniel Jones. I know, and everyone that wants to discredit the Giants says, they only played the Vikings. Just like when we beat the Colts on ESPN, they beat the Colts. Yeah, the Colts weren't a good team this year, don't get me wrong, but the Colts gave Justin Herbert a game the week before that. Herbert only had, I believe, 1 touchdown, maybe none. He also had a pick in that game. They gave Mahomes a game. They beat Mahomes earlier in the season, and the Colts also gave Jalen Hurts a game. So when the Giants beat the Vikings, there's always going to be people that say, you only beat the Vikings. But the Vikings weren't a great team, obviously, because they, their point differential, I think, was -3. They did win 13 games this. They found ways to win games in close scenarios like this was a one-score game.
This is the first one-score game they lost all season. Every other one-score
11-1 now, right?
Yes.
So that's
they
the thing.
overperformed, but they were obviously a good team.
They were a good team. And look at Justin Jefferson.
I mean, just their talent on offense.
The weapons. Hawkinson,
Jefferson,
Cook.
Yes. I mean, and that's not to say they don't have holes. I mean, their defense has problems.
I think they've already fired their defense coordinator.
Yeah, they're in talks.
They fired him the night after,
yeah.
which, I mean, tells you where they are defensively. But they still have talent on the defensive side. I mean, they're a very solid team, I think.
Definitely.
It would have... But I think most years they're probably more of a 10-win, 11-win team, but this Giants team looked like a 6 or 7-win team coming into the season, so I think this is a great win.
That's the thing, and I always said this, whenever the Giants were close to making the playoffs, like in 2020 where we could have made it just being, 6 wins and all. Obviously the division was the worst in the division, the NFC East, but that year I said, if we just get into the playoffs, you never know what happens. I didn't think that team's going to win the Super Bowl, but I said, if you just get in, you never know what's going to happen. That's why this year, we were playing with house money, right? Exactly. No one came with expectations.
Absolutely.
Even in this game, we were still underdogs. Even though a lot of people took us as the trendy upset pick, we still were underdogs in that game.
I believe we were the closest.
Yeah, was it 2.5, I think? 2.5. 2.5, which was,
Vikings, which
considering they're a home team, that's a favorable line for the team that's away on the road, especially a wild card team like the Giants. And I saw great things from DJ. Obviously, passing-wise, 301 passing yards, that was elite. The 2 touchdowns was great. The one thing about DJ in that game that I saw was the ball placement was elite, too.
Incredible.
Like, I only think maybe one ball could have been picked. Maybe one ball was like, thrown to double coverage. But besides that, everything was elite. That throw to Hodgins, that first down throw was elite on the sidelines.
I was going to say, I think we should talk, if we're going to talk about individual plays, that throw to Hodgins. He's in the pocket, faces pressure from the right side, rolls out to his left.
Yep.
And then throws on the run to Hodgins on the sideline, who makes the perfect toe tap. One of the best plays the Giants have made probably in the last decade.
I was going to say
just
that
in completion, Jones made
perfection,
a great play.
Yep.
The left side of the line held up long enough for him to get out.
There wasn't a hold like there always is.
No, and Hodgins did everything right. I mean,
toe tap and secured the ball, even secured it while he's inbounds, and that was a huge play. Giants get the first down, and there was another pass by DJ. That was definitely his best passing, probably his best pass of the season, considering it was across the hash marks, 25 yards downfield, rocket of an arm too. But he also had a throw to Slayton that was dropped in the right corner of the end zone. It was a tough play for Slayton. He was getting covered pretty well. But that throw by DJ was right corner. I forget who was on him. Might have been Patrick Peterson. Might have been. I can't remember.
I'm not sure, but it was great. I remember the one. Great touch on that.
And he threw a great ball right corner of the end zone. And I believe it was Peterson broke it up. He made a good play on it. But the accuracy on that throw was only where it was either going to get tipped away and go out of bounds. It wasn't going to get intercepted. It was either catch by Slayton or it just got tipped out of bounds or maybe went out of bounds on its own. Like, beautiful throw. And one thing with the offensive line is we did get 3 sacks in the game. 3 sacks, obviously, considering what we've done in years past, the offensive line has definitely gotten better this year. It's still, DJ was, I think, the 4th or 5th most sacked quarterback in the NFL. But the Giants actually gave him time to throw, and that's one thing with DJ is if you give him time to throw, he's going to rip apart the defense.
So I saw this stat, I believe it was PFF, said that he had around 2.9 seconds to throw, which doesn't mean very much unless you can compare it, but I believe league average is around 2.6, 2.7.
Yes,
so in general, he had a lot of time to throw. And where is it?
He did have a lot of time to throw.
He was only pressured on 16% of pass attempts. And
that's pretty good, because considering Kirk was probably pressured more than that, I'm sure. It was probably like 25%.
Again, this is according to PFF. Kirk was pressured on 49% of pass attempts.
I was going to say like 25 because we last played them, it was like 25%. Or 28% maybe.
I don't want to jump ahead and to talk about defense, but in general...
We can talk defense. Yeah,
we'll get to it. Jones was pressured very little, and most of that pressure was coming from Danielle Hunter against Neal. And even on, like I was saying, even on those plays where he was pressured, a lot of times... because the interior line was getting enough space, he was able to move out of the pocket or move up in the pocket and make plays still. And
you're right about that with Evan Neal versus Danielle Hunter. I think that's probably the biggest mismatch between their D-line and our offensive line. And Neal actually got a little bit better towards the end of the season. He's struggling with false starts. He was struggling with some holds, and he opened wide a lot of the time. That's how he was getting beat. But it's kind of like the Andrew Thomas thing where Andrew Thomas was a rookie, and remember that first game or two he was pretty good, then played Khalil Mack and got ripped apart.
Yeah.
You have some growing pains.
Yeah, and I don't want to put too much of this on Neal because Danielle Hunter is a great pass rusher.
And pro.
His attributes are the exact kind that match up well against a rookie. He's really fast. He's got really long arms.
He's a big guy.
He can just get around you in a way that most guys can't, even
Definitely.
in the NFL.
Definitely.
But, and I will say this is the real concern, next week...
Yeah, Eagles line.
Who's going to be lining up across from Evan Neal? Hassan Reddick.
Hassan Reddick, who gave us, 5 sacks? Was it 6 sacks last year?
6 sacks against Andrew Thomas.
His rookie year. It was rookie year,
So,
Well, we just ended up going into, let's just hold him and take the 10-yard penalty at that point, just so DJ doesn't get killed.
So that's a real concern going into next week. But anyway.
That is definitely, because their D-line's elite. And that's probably, I think they had 70 sacks this season, which was most in the NFL, which is ridiculous, considering we probably haven't had 70 sacks in 2 seasons. We probably around there at least.
Maybe.
Probably around there, right?
Yeah.
But the Eagles were one of the worst teams last year in sacks. I forget where they went. They went from, I think, bottom 5 to bottom 10. I saw a statistic, a couple weeks ago, so I could be wrong, with the end of the season. I don't know how to finish. But they were, a bottom in 5 sacks last year. Now they're 70th. Not 70, 70 sacks in their first.
Yeah.
And in considering, that big of a jump, I don't know how you can get that great of a jump. Obviously, health is part of it. I mean, Brandon Graham's healthy this year, and a couple of their other pieces. Fletcher Cox. Bradbury's a great piece.
I believe they added Reddick in the
Reddick in the offseason. Yep, we drilled that. Fletcher Cox is healthy as well. It's a big upgrade, considering he's had some injuries.
Still Fletcher Cox, still Brandon Graham.
They're both still great.
I mean, their secondary is always good enough.
It's always, here's the thing about the secondary. It's always iffy, but they make plays. So a lot, except Slay's elite now. But over the years, they'd have random guys that could just make plays, like Jalen Mills and LeBlanc. I forget his first name. Trayshawn LeBlanc. I forget his first name, but I remember he covered Odell one game and actually gave him a tough game. But that's the thing, though, with that team, the Eagles, is that they always give the Giants a game. The Giants have lost 9 straight games, or I believe 9 straight games in Philly in the last 9 years they've played in the regular season, and 3 of those games, though, were more than one possession games, so 6 of the 9 were within one possession. So the Giants were in a lot of those games. They did have an occasional blowout, I think, once every couple of years, but considering where the Giants are this year and all the momentum we have coming into this game, I think the Eagles are definitely going to be worried about us, 100%. If you look at what the Giants have done, they've obviously beat a good team, the Vikings. The Vikings, minus 3-point differential, I understand it. They obviously weren't the best 13-win team. Obviously considering how many 13-win teams are, usually the dominant in points scored, and, they obviously have a better differential than that. But coming and beating a Vikings team, playing with house money and having no expectations going into this year, and then also considering we gave them a game with Davis Webb at quarterback and Gary Bright at running back and Kenny Golladay at wideout.
Yeah, and I will say that, it's tough to play a team twice or 3 times. I mean, this is something you see. It's like you play a team the first time in the regular season, and maybe it's a shootout, maybe, however it goes. And then all of a sudden, maybe they recognize your tricks. Maybe that, that play that got you the 3rd down conversion doesn't work the next time. Things can happen. It's very tough to beat a team 3 times, though. 100%. And that's what it comes. I mean,
you're 100% right there. And
especially after the scare we gave them in the last week of the season. I am feeling optimistic.
I would agree with you. I think if you look at what we did last week against them, we gained momentum in that Week 18 game because we're playing all our backups. And by the way, the defensive back's name is Crayvon LeBlanc, not Krayshawn. It was Crayvon LeBlanc. But
shout out Crayvon LeBlanc.
Shout out Crayvon. Probably the only shout he's gotten on the pod before, but shout him out. Why not? My boy. He actually played pretty well against the Giants one game. I remember that. But if you look what the Giants did in Week 18, we were playing with no expectations. We were just playing second and third stringers for the most part. I mean, I think one guy, maybe 2 guys, Lawrence Cage did get some snaps this week, wasn't a starter, and Davis, the linebacker, Jared Davis, did actually start for the Giants this week. But besides that, he was a practice squad guy heading into that game. Besides that, though, the Giants already played all backups. Landon Collins did get some snaps, but he's been in and out of the starting lineup, and he's been getting some meaningful snaps. But the Giants played all backups for the most part. I think Evan Neal did play 1 series, maybe 2. But we played with all backups. The Giants had nothing to play for in that game since we were staying as a 6 seed. The Eagles had everything to play for, playing for the 1 seed. They had Jalen Hurts in the game. He didn't look right. I mean, he only ran the ball, I think, 3 or 4 times. Yeah. I think it was like 13 yards.
He definitely looked banged up, and he wasn't moving well. Although, we don't know how he'll play. It's been, 2 weeks now?
2 weeks now. I saw a report today which they're definitely going to say this just because they don't want the Giants to ever think they have an advantage by him still being. They said he's fully, cleared or whatever, which I think that might just be so the Giants prepare as if he's fully ready and they don't, expect him to be, just running 3 times because he's probably going to run more than that at 100%. If he's healthy, he's going to run probably 8, 9, 10 times. Yeah. That's one thing he killed the Giants with before is his running ability. And that's the one thing with the Giants, though, is that they can also run the ball as well, with Daniel Jones. I know, obviously, it's different when you have a quarterback. You have to game plan for, actually move. You know what I mean? So it's someday they have to game plan for themselves. But let's switch to the Giants' defense, unless you have something to say about the offense.
I was going to say, no, I wanted to
Let's switch to the defense because what a game. I mean, there's one play I want to talk about just to start. I think it was the biggest play of the game on defense. 3rd and 8, a minute chance to go. The Vikings are moving the ball. They're on about their own 45-yard line. They throw about a 15-yard pass or a 12-yard pass on 3rd and 8. Cor'Dale Flott steps in the game because Jason Pinnock got hurt at the kickoff right before. Pinnock out of the game. He's usually in the game during that because I think it's a 6 defensive back set, maybe 7 on 3rd and long. the Giants typically run with Wink Martindale's defense. And Cor'Dale Flott steps in his first snap of the game on defense because he was on special teams. The first snap of the game on defense and breaks up pass to KJ Osborne, breaks up the first down, and broke up all momentum, making it be 4th and 8.
Yep.
I only want to start with that play just because I said to my dad, I think that was the biggest play of defense on the game.
I think I would have to agree. There's only one other play that I could think of that would come close, and that was the deep ball to Jefferson.
Yes.
Which I believe was in the first half.
Yep.
They were doubling. I mean, Wink really put together a great game here.
Did. Elite.
They had Adoree following Justin Jefferson all game, and they had McKinney up top helping him all game. And obviously, choosing to double team a player is a big choice. Sometimes it doesn't work out. I think here, obviously, it worked out. Justin Jefferson, regardless of what, the numbers he put up this game, is one of, if not the best wide receivers in the game.
I would say top 3 100%. I like Devontae Adams more, but I would say
there's a couple
2, 3. Like, that's the thing. No one's going to say it's below
exactly.
3. You're right.
And it's a tough decision because, once you double a guy, you're giving them the advantage they need. And, a savvy offensive coordinator can pick you apart by making that decision. But it really did work out. I think he ended up with 5 catches.
It was with the Dorian coverage, only 6. I think he ended with, it's 7 for 47 on 9 targets, and his long catch was 10 yards. And he usually beats you on those 25-yard posts, 30-yard deep shots, because he's, not only can he make a jump ball play, obviously he can also beat you with his speed. I mean, he's just an all-around receiver. He can beat you on cuts, whether it's a slant, a streak, any route he can beat you on. And the Giants held him to a long of 10, which is probably the most impressive. I think 7 catches, I mean, he usually gets 10 or 11, but 7 he's had in some games where he goes for 7 for 130.
Right.
It's a 10 as a long.
Exactly.
And considering Adoree, which I saw PFF said, with Adoree in coverage on him, they lined up Adoree against him 85% of his routes for Jefferson when he was on the field. 85% of the time Adoree was with them on his routes, on pass plays. Held him to 6 catches of 37 yards with Adoree in coverage.
Right.
That shows Adoree without him, without Adoree, the Giants struggled in that Christmas Eve game.
Oh, yeah. And that was a key difference. Adoree finally being healthy. Hasn't back end of the season, I don't think he played any games.
Nothing in the last 6 weeks. He with that punt return injury, and I think it was week 11. And it originally was a 4 to 6 week thing where they were like, it could be on the earlier end of the 4 weeks where he starts practicing again. But we both talked right when we had lunch, like maybe week 2 or 3 of that injury. We both said it's probably going to be a while. Yeah. And then McKinney as well, even.
And they played slow with both of them. They didn't want to get him hurt in meaningless games, which clearly worked out. And I mean,
we made it
to make some more points in defense. Things that I was seeing, just to bring it back up.
Definitely, yeah.
Pressure on 49% of pass attempts. So normally Wink's a very high blitzer. I think I saw
I have it right here, yeah.
On about 40% of plays.
It was 46.5% league lead in the NFL. Right. 46.5, so roughly, yeah.
That game we blitzed 22% of the time. So we were getting pressure through blitzes, but most of our pressure was just coming through 4 guys pass rushing and beating them. And primarily the pressure was coming from Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, who played incredible. I mean,
definitely.
About as much impact as you can have in a game without getting a sack, a fumble, an interception. Dexter Lawrence was everywhere. Tackles for losses against Dalvin Cook, hands in Kirk
passing lanes, yeah.
Practically every play. And just to throw another number in there, Kirk dropped back 40 times to pass, and on 11 of those he was hit.
Wow.
Which, obviously you want to see sacks. It's frustrating to not get any sacks.
Definitely.
But he had hands in his face all game. He was getting knocked to the ground all game. This is exactly what Wink wants to do. He tries to make quarterbacks uncomfortable. He tries to force them out of their comfort zone and into making bad decisions. And I think what we saw at the end was Kirk, maybe not panicking, maybe that's not the right word, but
rushing to get the ball off.
Yeah,
he was
dropping
getting it
back
up
to his
quicker than he usually
instincts.
would.
And look, he threw it short of the sticks, and I think it's easy to make fun of, but I'm sure it's hard to not look at that and think that the pressure was getting to him.
Oh, 100%. And the Giants' coverage on that play actually was pretty good. It was pretty
excellent. Yeah,
it was pretty good coverage. So I guess, and I thought, why would he only throw just to Hawkinson on 4th and 8 on a 3-yard route? Obviously, McKinney makes a tackle, ends the game. But I heard someone say, I forget, it might have been on the radio, that might have been his only option, because at the end of the day, if you look downfield, all the receivers, one of them had their back turned, 2 of them were getting locked up, and Hawkinson was the only one there. So it was just like here you go, maybe see if you can get the first down, which the Giants did with Breida once in that game.
I was going to bring it up.
3rd and long, Breida made some crazy play.
Yes, on what was honestly a bad play call. But
3rd and long dump off, right?
It was an end around with Matt Breida, which I have to be honest, I don't run end arounds with players like that aren't that fast.
Yeah,
it's one of the most annoying play calls.
We somehow got it though,
but it worked,
which was awesome.
Which is nice.
Which was
awesome.
awesome.
They don't do it again.
I think it was 3rd and 4 or 5, and
it was actually just 3rd and 1.
3rd and 1 was it?
That's it was just 3rd and 1. It looked like a 3rd and 4.
It was 3rd and short, but it was just you saw the
he did about 10 yards of work.
And he had to. I mean, he got the first down, which is unreal. He got banged a couple times in that play, but an elite play there by Breida, obviously staying up. Breida finished the game, which 3 carries, 8 yards. It doesn't look like anything crazy, but he had a good impact of the game on when you have to take Saquon or you put Saquon in the game with him, change of pace.
Yes.
Because he's obviously a little bit more fast than Saquon. Saquon's a more physical back. Obviously a bigger guy. Breida's more pass catching back, even though he didn't have any catches in this game. He switches up the pace. I think having him in the game with Saquon makes a huge difference. Even if the impact doesn't show up much in the box or 3 for 8, he made some big plays for Saquon. Maybe one play I think he had blocking for Saquon where they ran it like a double back set.
Yeah.
I like those sets a lot, especially considering because Daniel Jones can run too, so you have 3 guys that can get the ball. Another guy that had a huge impact in the game we didn't really mention much, Isaiah Hodgins, wasn't the practice squad of the Bills till week 10.
Right. I mean, just an incredible find. I guess credit to Schoen and to Dable for knowing this guy was a stud. Because he's been by far our best receiver since he showed up.
100%. 100%.
And this game he did everything. I mean, anywhere on the field, catches in traffic, open catches, yards after the catch, just...
I would agree with you there, yeah.
Everything we've needed on our offense.
A guy's not afraid to block, too, because that's one thing. Galladay actually had a great block in the game.
Yes, he did level that corner.
Leveled him. That's the one thing about Galladay was I always said to you, I don't like his effort. That's the main thing I don't like about him. He's just never tried to block. Even if you're not making catches, you could drop passes. Evan Ingram dropped a lot of balls to the Giants, but he always tried to block. He wasn't a great blocker in any means, but he tried to block always, gave effort. Galladay, you'd see just have his hands by his side, not caring to block. I think now he realizes, okay, this is my role on the team. If I'm going to get in, it's probably going to be, whether it's a fade route, he's not going to be running, crossing routes, probably, because he's dropped a good amount, but he did get opportunities this year. Against the Texans, he dropped one that would have been a 15 to 20-yard gain, and there was no one near him on 3rd and 6, and he dropped it. I was at that game. There was a lot of booze around the stadium. Considering now, I think he knows his role is probably going to be short. He's never going to be the starting wideout, even though I know he was listed on the depth chart after that touchdown catch he had last week against the Eagles, first practice of the week, last week on Wednesday.
He's technically listed as the wide receiver 1, even though I think
he doesn't play.
He's the wide receiver 5 or 6.
Snaps-wise, 100%.
Right.
I'd imagine
because even Cager
got more.
I did not know was on a roster until yesterday.
He
got more snaps than
he did, yeah.
Galladay.
Cager played well in that Week 18 game, which it was really a throwaway game, so we weren't really showing any of our tricks. We weren't playing our best players, but Cager played pretty well in that, and Davis Webb also played well, considering Webb had, I think it was a quarterback rating 10 points higher, way higher, actually. It wasn't even just 10 points. I think his passer rating was 10 points higher than Jalen Hurts, but he actually had a really good game, and I didn't realize until afterwards, after the game, which I knew it was his debut, starting-wise, I didn't realize he didn't throw a pass in the NFL until that game. That game, which is nuts, considering, it was a meaningless game for us.
He was drafted by Jerry Reese, who has been unemployed, I think, for almost 8 years now.
Yeah, gone. Reese has been toast. But in that game against Hurts had a 65 passer rating, Webb at 75.8, quarterback rating, Webb is 73.9, Hurts 23.1. And the Giants were getting pressure without Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams in that game, and Azeez Ojulari's banged up with a calf injury, which... Yeah. I haven't really heard much about him. Hopefully he's all right. I saw Pinnock was back practicing today, so he's good in special teams.
Today was walkthroughs, and I believe Ojulari was there, although I don't know.
Yeah, they did walkthroughs light, and probably stuff on the side maybe with him if he were to be out. But Cage on the game was 8 of 69 against the Eagles last week. And considering we really didn't play many guys, he was really the only option we had, especially a bigger guy. He had 16 as his catch for long, and 10 targets. So,
not bad.
Considering... Bellinger's a good tight end, but he's probably going to get you the 5 to 10, 15 tops plays. He's not going to really run a 20-yard post or anything. Cage has a little bit more speed, a little bit more athletic of a build. I would say he might get himself some snaps in the red zone if we want to do a 2 tight end set, have a fade route, have him run a fade, and Bellinger run like a drag or something. But, that's just a guess here. But look at that Giants team, though. We talked about Hodgins, talked about Jones, talked about Barkley. I think three guys that earned themselves contracts in that game. I thought they were going to earn contracts already, which Saquon I was iffy on. I knew Daniel Jones would get himself a deal by the end of the year, I thought. Dexter Lawrence had his 5th-year option picked up. You figured he'd probably get a long-term deal at some point. But obviously now it's more than I thought he was going to get. Saquon definitely earned himself at least a 2 to 3 year deal, I would say, which I don't know what he's going to want. That's the problem. That's the thing.
It's a very interesting case, and I don't think there's been many big running back deals lately.
It's risky.
After the Zeke deal, teams have very much gotten gun shy.
McCaffrey's the only one, really, right?
Right. And even him, I think, they're regretting.
The Panthers 100% regret it. That's why they traded, because they were like, we're not going anywhere, and he's hurt a lot. Might as well get a couple draft picks out of it.
And obviously, we'd love to have Saquon back, but it is a question of, what does the number look like? Because we're going to have to re-sign Jones.
That's it.
Have to re-sign Dexter Lawrence.
Lawrence is huge. I didn't realize, which I think we talked about this at the beginning of the year, and I was saying his sack total, his career high in sacks, I think, was 3 or 4 before this year. It wasn't much. Right. And we were saying to you, he doesn't really get much. He pick up his 5th-year option, didn't pick up DJ's, which I figured they were going to pick up DJ's, but I thought picking up his, I didn't think it was a bad move, but I just questioned it because I was like, you're already spending a lot of money on these other guys, and obviously Leonard Williams gets, I think his cap hit next year is $32 million, which is nuts, which is number 1 among defensive linemen in the NFL next year. But I didn't realize Dexter Lawrence was only not getting the sacks because Leonard Williams is getting all of those sacks, and now it's the reverse, where Leonard Williams only has, 3 sacks in the year, and Dexter Lawrence is getting the sacks that he usually would get. Yes. And you were saying, Lawrence, you really can't base just off of sacks because he's great in the run game and run stopping, and I didn't really grade him on that at all. Never did.
And honestly, what's so crazy about Dexter Lawrence, even compared to other defensive tackles, is he is playing like a true nose tackle. He is,
right in the center. Yep.
Even Aaron Donald, who has had probably the most ridiculous defensive tackle stretch ever.
Definitely.
In the last few years. Now he's starting to decline, but prior to that, the last 5 years.
It's the injuries part of it, too. He's been banged up now the last year. I'd agree with you, though.
Right.
I'd say the best D-lineman of our lifetime, probably.
He was allowed,
right up there.
He moved around a lot. He would play 0 tack, he'd play 1 tack, sometimes they even lined him up at the 3.
Yep.
But Lawrence is basically always a true nose tackle. And you see what he's able to do in the passing game as a nose tackle. It's
100%.
ridiculous. And also in the run game, Vikings rushed 16 times for only 61 yards. That is...
It's impressive.
That's a lot. And it's Dalvin Cook. This is no slouch.
It's a good
Cook
back.
Being locked down.
He's a good back.
Yeah.
And he even got himself some money, too, on a deal. So, it's another running back there.
And 5 times we were able to tackle him for a loss.
Very impressive. I actually didn't know that. I would have probably said 2 or 3. I didn't think 5. Wow.
5. Which...
Wow.
Just... And, I don't know how many of those were Dex himself, but...
I think he had a couple of tackles, maybe 1 tackle for loss.
Just the fact that he's on the field, eating up a double team and getting through it,
so Leonard Williams
so
steps
many
in,
opportunities.
Right. So Leonard Williams steps in, which... Williams, that's the thing. His stats didn't really show up on sacks when the Giants first got him until about his second year. He got, I think, 10.5 sacks. But he's always been good in the run stopping game. The Jets knew that too, but he just didn't get the pressure that he's getting on the Giants. And now it's the reverse with Dex is kind of getting that pressure that Williams usually had. And that's not a bad thing. Whoever's hitting the quarterback, I don't care who it is, right? I always want my boys to score touchdowns. I always want Gallman to score a touchdown. I always want Brightwood to score a touchdown. I want my boys to score, Richie James. But whoever, I don't care. If the Giants score a touchdown, I'm not going to nitpick. Just like if you're going to get a sack, you're not going to nitpick who it was.
Exactly.
Considering our pressure was abysmal for this year, really. With Patrick Graham, we played a little more conservative. We'd get some pressure, but it was more conservative. Never blitzed to the rate we did.
Yeah.
And now it's consistent pressure. If you look at Kirk Cousins, he was definitely uncomfortable out there.
Yeah. And
uncomfortable for sure.
I think that's been the pattern all years, that we've gotten a high rate of pressure and a low rate of sacks. And obviously, that's going to be tough, especially against the Eagles. The Eagles have really elite pass protection.
Definitely.
Whether or not
Rod is good. And their right tackle's hurt, though.
Lane Johnson is going to be playing with a torn muscle, one of his ab muscles.
Yes, I heard he was out for the last few weeks of the regular season.
Still, Lane Johnson with a torn ab. It's
probably
still better than
Evan Neal, probably
any other right tackle.
It's probably still better than Evan Neal. Yeah, I would agree with you there. He's a stud.
And Jason Kelsey, who was first team All-Pro.
Still the best center in the league.
Still the best center in the league. Probably a Hall of Famer.
And the adjustments he makes, his center is great blocking-wise, but he picks up, your defensive coverage just like a quarterback would need to. He has an eye for the game. He's been in the league for so long, and he's been an All-Pro multiple times. I'd say, 4 or 5 times, I guess.
So.
But a very good player in Kelsey, and then obviously their offense in general. A.J. Brown, you look at their wideouts, Devontae Smith's good. Boston Scott has 10 touchdowns against the Giants in 8 career games.
That's the scary thing. I think... you know, we've had some success not locking down, but containing teams even with talented wide receivers. I mean, we just did it to the Vikings, but you look at that right side of the Vikings line, or
offensive line.
The Eagles' offensive line.
The offensive line.
They are just scary, and potentially we'll be facing them without Ojolari, which would be
a loss.
Really tough.
That's a loss.
We'll see, but I mean that's going to be really a key matchup because if they're able to get running on us early, it's going to be a very long game because there's a real scenario where they score twice early and then they just run the ball down our throat and there's not much we can do about it.
I would agree with you there because, I mean, running-wise, Cook's still at 4 yards a carry, which, still pretty good. I mean, he's a great back. Yeah. He can go for 5 or 6 most games. You know, a lot of the time his speed takes over and he's physical back. He's good. He's got everything you need in the back, like Saquon. But that's the thing, though. They can run the ball with their quarterback as well, and obviously Kirk doesn't have that ability. Yeah. So it's going to be hard if in that situation we're down 2 touchdowns and they're running options with Hurts and obviously their backs, whether it be Boston Scott or the other one, Miles Sanders.
Who's another great back. Which Scott's definitely going to play. He's not going to get snaps against most teams as much as he's going to get against the Giants just because he kills us. Killer.
He is.
He's a giant killer. He's on their roster just to play us.
I think it's like every game. I know he has 10 and 8 games. It seems like they're all timely touchdowns too. Like we're all like, you have no hope now. You're only down to touchdown. Oh, Boston Scott scored his 15th touchdown in 2 career games against the Giants. It's 10 in 8 games, to be exact. But and 9 of them being on the ground, 1 in the air, so he doesn't really beat you in the air as much. But still, I think that's going to be a tough thing. I think the Giants' offense, it's definitely going to be harder to score against that Eagles defense for sure. We know that.
It's going to be incredibly tough. I mean, we're definitely the underdogs. I mean, no definitely. Question.
And a touchdown, right? 7.5, I think we are.
Yeah. In Vegas. Which honestly feels generous considering we're going to Philly.
Definitely. In a playoff game where they're well rested, too. Yes. Besides, they have a couple injuries, but mostly well rested. The Giants now have some guys banged up. Ojolari's banged up. I saw McKinney was limited today.
Yeah.
Or Adoree was limited today. I'm not sure about McKinney, but Adoree definitely was limited today. I think Adoree's was probably he played just with every snap on defense last game and had to cover Jefferson, so let's just give him an extra day or 2 of rest. And he'll be ready. I'm not sure who will cover between DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown.
Probably, I would imagine
A.J. Brown.
Probably Brown.
Because he's a little more physical than Fabian Moreau anyways, and Moreau I'd imagine Donnie Holmes actually gets a little more snaps now too, because Moreau doesn't have really the speed to cover a guy like DeVonta Smith, and Holmes actually played pretty well last game. He did have, the occasional penalty, which he always does every game, but tackling-wise, behind the line of scrimmage, I think he had 2 tackles for loss. Let me get that exact stat. The 2 tackles for loss, 3 solo tackles, 6 total in the game. I think he'll probably be in the game as well, getting some snaps against DeVonta Smith, because Smith will line up in the slot, sometimes line up wide, on the outside. I'm not really sure what he lines up more. I'd say he lines up both, but you definitely have to play Donnie Holmes. You'll probably even get some snaps from a couple of your other guys like Nick McLeod. But that's the thing, though. How do you think the Giants' defense fares against their offense, and then the vice versa, the Giants' offense versus their defense? I think, what would you say you were more confident for the Giants? Their offense against the Eagles' defense or the Giants' defense against the Eagles' offense?
I think
I'd probably go with the Giants' defense against their offense.
I don't know, because I think there's a real concern that they just tire us out. I think that, again, like if they're able to get especially if we don't have Azeez Ojolari, they're going to have a huge advantage on that right side.
You're right.
They, if they break open a few pass plays early, they force us to do a too high safety look. Now all of a sudden they could open up, throw Miles Sanders at us. They can do options with. I mean, if Hurts is healthy, it opens up a whole
100%.
Another wave of things that they could do against us. I think that's my biggest concern. Whereas I feel like even against the great defenses we've played this year, Kafka's been tricky enough where we can still make some plays happen.
Definitely.
Saquon is always liable to break off a big run. And,
I'm with you there.
Jones
the Giants have the
plays.
explosibility. Hodgins has the explosibility. We got the speed, but just as vertical, he can get up there and make a 30-yard catch. And then you have Richie James has the speed. Slayton obviously has that explosive speed that you need. The big playability is probably the better way to describe Hodgins, just because he can go up and make a 25-yard 50-50 ball. And the Giants really don't have that in Hodgins, James or Slayton.
Did you see Hodgins, his foot?
Yeah, dude. It was all purple. It was purple and brown, all swollen. And he somehow went for 10 for 103 and a touchdown in that game, which is nuts.
he said I saw his Instagram story. He's like, I'm sorry I wasn't as fast today. He still ran pretty good for a guy that's ankle looked like that.
His ankle, it looked like someone just hit it with a hammer.
Oh, 100%. I don't know multiple times, I would say. Multiple times. I'd imagine they taped it up pretty good. Even if you tape it, I've had ankles swollen, but not to that degree. You still feel it every single step. And I didn't play football. Mine was with baseball, which you still feel it in baseball. But football, you're running every single play, cutting too. You're cutting.
And guys, someone probably stepped on his foot at some point.
Oh, definitely. During the game, definitely. You get cleated. It's anything, baseball, football. You get cleated a lot. Whether you're stealing a base in baseball or in football, you're diving for the end zone and whatever it may be, you're gonna feel.
He's a dog.
You're gonna
feel it's as simple as that.
He has that
He's
in
a
him.
dog.
He has that in him for sure. The reason why I said the Giants defense I had more confidence in is just because the Vikings offense is good. They have a lot of weapons. Justin Jefferson would still be the best receiver in the Eagles. Even the Eagles have two great receivers in Brown and Smith. Jefferson would still be their best receiver. Hawkinson would probably still be their best tight end. Goddard's good.
Goddard's solid.
I'd say Hawkinson would still probably be their best tight end. Dalvin Cook would be their best running back. And here's the thing. I'm not comparing the two offenses to that degree because both teams can score points. But the Giants' defense played pretty well last game against the Vikings. And the offense, the reason why I think the Giants' offense, which I have all the confidence in the world of Daniel Jones and Saquon, I think the Giants actually still win this game, which it might be a hot take to most, but I think the Giants win this game. I had that as my prediction a week ago now. I think the Giants' offense might struggle with it more just because of that pass rush. That's why I worry.
Yeah.
That's why I worry. I still think we could score points and win the game, but I have more confidence in the Giants' defense holding them to 10 points than I would the Giants, or not 10, let's say 21 or 24 points.
Yeah, that's fair.
Than I would the Giants scoring 35, 40, which, here's the thing, we have more confidence in the Giants' defense holding them under 24 or the Giants scoring over 30. I would say the Giants' defense holding them under 24.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Maybe under 30.
I think
under 30, over 30.
Yeah,
Probably take the Giants'
I feel like
defense holding them under 30.
This game could turn into a slugfest where it's just both teams doing 8-minute drives against each other.
A lot of run plays will do that to you too.
Which I think would probably be that's probably the scenario I see us winning is we force them to put it on the ground and we tire out their defense. I think that's definitely a possible scenario. I definitely think the worst scenario is a high-scoring game. I just don't see us having a way of keeping up with them like we kept up with the Vikings.
I would agree with you. If you want to win this game, realistically, you probably have to hold them to under 30. That's what I said about the Vikings game.
Yeah.
My prediction of the Vikings game was 31-24 Giants. I was off by 31-27, so I was off by 3 points. I had an extra field goal for the Vikings. But the reason why I said that is because I said I think the Giants will score just around 30. And I said if they want to win this game, they have to hold the Vikings under 30. So I'm just going to say 27 because that's the only other way you could score probably under 30.
Honestly,
whether it's 28, 29.
More important than specific score or how many touchdowns. I think really what it comes down to time of possession.
Definitely.
Something I want to make a note of. Time of possession in the Giants-Vikings game, 33 minutes for the Giants and 26 for the Vikings. I mean,
it's pretty good.
We really dominated time possession. We
Definitely.
had, I believe, a 10-minute drive in the first half.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what they wanted to do. It's exactly what we
had on the defense.
Yeah.
And our defense gets rest.
Right.
The Giants defense gets rest in that situation.
That was really key because I believe it was after both teams had scored a touchdown.
10:52, we 20 plays, 85 yards.
Yeah.
And we got a field goal on that drive.
Yes.
But got a 17-7 lead, which we actually scored a touchdown, I believe, right?
That was the
Daniel Jones 4-yard rush.
The Bellinger penalty.
Yes, illegal shift, which we get called on that so much. Which I know they had two guys in motion.
They do a lot of crafty plays like that. Kafka has a lot of fun play designs, but unfortunately, one of the side effects is sometimes
guys on set.
Yeah,
you got time.
I mean, that play was a tricky play.
It was. I mean, the Chiefs ran it too. When he was at the Chiefs, they did that stuff with Travis Kelce and stuff. But I didn't really see them penalize. Maybe I should have watched them in the games. But I feel like we're calling it always. Which even if it's a third of a second of a difference, which I know it's still an illegal shift. A legal shift's an illegal shift. I get that because the other guy's not set when one guy's in motion. But I feel like we're called on that, just like we're called for the illegal man downfield more than most teams. Let's not call it more in the NFL now, but we're also called for the pick play more than most teams, I would say, too. I would say which I call both of those more. We're calling the illegal, ineligible receiver man downfield, ineligible I can't speak English now. Ineligible receiver downfield are calling more in the NFL nowadays. And they're also calling the pick plays a little more, but I feel like we're penalized on it 90% of the time whenever it happens.
I'm not sure if it's more or not. I'm glad they are, honestly, because I think a lot of what's being called sort of tricky and innovative offensive play design is essentially just finding the most legal way of doing picks.
That's the thing. That's what you're looking for, the rub routes, yep.
All those, so I'm glad they're cracking down on it. There are a couple times where I feel they've been unfair, the Cowboys game. But
that was brutal. That was brutal. That was a touchdown right down the field,
Yeah.
first drive in Thanksgiving. You're right.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. But I think the problem with the Giants, when they do get called for that, it's usually a big play, like a touchdown or a big play. And not always. If it's a 5-yard play on, 2nd and 8, you're not going to care as much. 2nd and 13 is not great, but you get an extra play out of it, so you don't lose your 5 yards. But you lose a touchdown, the likely Giants scoring another touchdown over the years. We cherish touchdowns over the years because we didn't really get many in the regular season. Obviously, now we're scoring touchdowns. I think the Giants' offense last game looked like one of the best in the league, just how crisp we looked. 31 points, obviously. We scored more than that against the Colts. We looked very crisp in that game. I know the Colts' defense isn't great. I know the Vikings' defense isn't great. I get that. But to win a game, you have to score points, and the Giants just look so crisp on offense in that game.
And no turnovers.
No turnovers.
No. I believe Richie James might have fumbled once.
Well, fumbled out of bounds on a kick return, which wasn't even close to being inbounds. So it was it wasn't like they could have returned got it almost. But
a clean game, not just. I mean, points are one thing, but playing a clean, complete
football game definitely. And even defense too. I mean, we didn't really have any penalties. Which I know we played against Jefferson before. We had
there was the one penalty that was
the roughing the passer.
The roughing the passer,
which we talked about today in passing when I was going to class and you were coming from class. Dexter Lawrence on that coach. I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
No.
I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
I mean, I don't think anyone thought that was, I don't even think Vikings fans thought that was a roughing the passer. I think they acknowledged they got lucky with it.
Definitely.
Which,
there was outrage on Twitter. I mean, Scott Zolak, former Patriot, and he has his own show now, Zolak and Bertrand on 98.5 The Sports Hub, was going off on Twitter about it.
Yeah.
He literally wrote at the NFL, you got to figure out officiating. This is ridiculous. He's like, that's a very costly penalty. He wrote all that on there, which it was. I mean, it was the last drive of the game. It was win or go home for the Giants. Don't give him a touchdown because we have a touchdown. They're probably going to go for 2 and get it without luck.
Yeah, and what I will say is all the credit to Dable because there were 2 plays at the end of the game that could have been real backbreakers. There was that play, and then there was the Slayton drop, which we had talked about a little bit. But either of those plays are moments where I think if a team is on their back heels and the other team is gaining momentum, those plays happen, and that's where a collapse starts. It's just
over the years.
One bad play happens, the players get down, and then it's another one, and then they're driving down the field, and it's game over. All the credit to Dable that those plays, which basically happened back to back. I mean,
definitely,
the drop, they punted, and then the second play on the defense was the
15
phantom
yards.
roughing the passer call. I mean, they still rallied, which is not easy.
Definitely. I mean, they were key plays for multiple guys in that drive. Dane Belton forced, I believe it was, let me see here, it was Dalvin Cook out of bounds on a 2-yard pass from him. It was a dump off from Kirk. And then McKinney, I know that play, still had to get 5 yards, Hawkinson, but in years past, I mean, we've given up plays on 4th and 8, and you lose a game on that.
Them up.
Which I remember it was years ago now. This might be 2015 or maybe 2017. We played the Cowboys, and it was before the Dak days, so it might have been like 2015. We were still not a great team then, but the Cowboys were like the 12-yard line. I think it was like 3rd and 11, in the 12-yard line. So right before they get a first down, they had to get to the 1. Or it might have been 4th down, like 8-10 seconds ago, they threw a touchdown to Jason Witten over the middle. And those are plays where I think he got hit at the 2-yard, and he still gets in the end zone. We have had games where like they throw short and still get the first down or still get the touchdown.
Yes.
And that play there, I know, which me and my dad talked about, he still had to get 5 yards, Hawkinson, even if he wanted to get that. But wrapping him up, getting that play, not having a penalty on that play, especially, I didn't even mention that when I was just talking about it, was huge. And then obviously Cor'Dale Flott's play on 3rd down was they were on the 48-yard line with, there was a minute 56 to go, and still had a timeout, I believe, and had a minute 56 to go, 50 yards.
Yeah.
So there was still time left in the game, 52 yards to go. But the Giants did very well, had obviously some really good drives on offense, great drives on defense all around. It was collective football that was great. And even on special teams, which there was one play they muffed a punt the Vikings, and we should have had it. We both texted each other. It's just how luck where it bounces right to them.
It was a tough bounce. It was a tough bounce. A great hit.
It was Nick McLeod. Nick McLeod lit him up. Nick McLeod had a great hit. And that's about McLeod and Pinnock have both had to play regular snaps on defense this year without injuries. And they both played pretty good, fairly good considering the mid-season pickups. But special teams, McLeod's great. And then Pinnock, I even said to my dad, I was like, Pinnock not being there, especially is a loss because the whole year, I mean, you learn how to get, you gel with your special teams group, right? So one guy's going to go and try to hit it, from going to the end zone. Who's going to save it? You gel and you obviously have a chemistry with those guys. So Pinnock being hurt was tough, but it seems like he'll be back. He was fully ready today, and I think it was an abdomen injury, which
Maybe just got a bruised ab or something. I don't know. It didn't look good because I saw him quivering and stuff. That didn't look good.
I saw they actually took him to the hospital mid-game and then brought him back for the end of the game. Which
did they get him in there? That's awesome.
I didn't know they could do that.
They got him. That's awesome.
Right.
Wow. I mean, it was a rib and ab injury.
It was something.
They originally reported it as a rib injury, and I think I saw it was an abdomen injury when they said, when he left the game, maybe got to the hospital. But credit to the Giants though for taking and roughing the pass penalty on second down, setting up the Vikings on the 33-yard line with 2 minutes and 30 seconds to go, and they rallied and played great defense. And after that, it was clean football.
Yeah.
Clean football.
Want to take a quick break, and then we'll...
Absolutely. Be back with you guys in just a minute.
All right.
What's going on, everyone? We are back here. We're going to preview the games this weekend for the divisional round. Talk about the wild card games maybe just for a second and talk about what we saw in those games. Maybe we already talked about the Giants-Vikings game. Cowboys-Bucks, we just talked about in the break, which there's not really much to say in that Cowboys-Bucks game besides, I guess, the Bucks are broken. I mean, what did you see in that game?
I think we were all afraid to say it, and I think I'm still afraid to say it. But look, just because Tom Brady is on a team doesn't necessarily mean they can turn it around at any time.
It's not his fault. Yeah,
Not
he had a bad
game,
though.
Him,
he didn't have the best game though. But it was 66 passes is I think the second most in a playoff game. I saw 35-66, 351, 2 touchdowns and a pick obviously, but. That team's broken. The offensive line obviously has injuries. The secondary was banged up all year, but even with everyone healthy, was not great.
No, I mean moving
Shaq Barrett going down early in the season did not help.
Moving Todd Bowles to head coach it didn't work. I mean, Todd Bowles is a great defensive coordinator. I don't think he's head coach.
I would agree with you.
At this point,
didn't work out on the Jets.
Didn't work out on the Jets. Isn't currently working out with a much more talented roster, frankly. And I mean, they showed up looking unprepared for this Cowboys team.
I would agree with you.
So,
I mean, that Bucs team still has so much talent though on that defense. Levante David, Carlton Davis is good.
White.
Yeah, exactly. Devin White, elite cornerback.
Yeah.
I mean, elite linebacker. And then you have really elite linebackers. I'm about to say. Then you have some good cornerbacks. You still have a good D line. Still have a good pass rush. It's just Vita Vea is good. I mean, they were just broken. I think as a team.
Yeah, and I mean, and at the same time, it's like. I think they've already let Byron Leftwich go. Here's the thing. I saw a report today they got rid of him, and then I saw a report today at like 4 o'clock where they've made a decision on him yet, which I think maybe is just like we don't want to make it have it be a bad for the press. But I will say that.
But he's going to get fired. I'd imagine.
And the Chargers. We'll talk about them as well.
Yes, let's do it. Chargers, Jags. Talk about
both of them. Throw the ball a ton, and can't run the ball.
Yeah,
which you just can't do that in the playoffs. I don't know how else to put it.
Looking at the stats right here. Look at this. The running stats for. We're looking at the Chargers Jags game right now. Chargers only ran the ball for 67 yards.
60, yeah.
And you look at the touches. I mean, let me see. I'm looking at the other one here. Eckler 13 of 35 for 2 touchdowns, 2.7 a carry. He's usually better than that. I mean, you're right. Yeah. And Herbert threw 43 times in that game.
Yeah, and it's just.
That's a good fact to point out.
These are both teams that. Not just they don't have the talent to run or they don't have the offensive line to run. Schematically, they're not
built for it.
They can't run the ball for whatever reason.
They're not built for it. And you're right.
I think both teams are probably going to let their offense. I think Lombardi's already been fired.
Yep. Chargers are making a lot of changes.
Right.
The linebackers coach got fired and
I would
some
hope
other moves. I think Staley
goes. I hope.
I was going to say I think Staley should go too, but it seems like they're going to keep him because Herbert likes him. Herbert in the locker room like him, which. I mean, I think the Giants at one point, everyone liked Joe Judge after the first year. Obviously the Giants weren't going to fire him after 1 year since that team was not ready to win. But the Giants locker room liked Joe Judge, and then everything turned. I think anything could turn in a second. It just might be the media saying, which everything looked happy in the Giants after Joe Judge's first year. Everything went up, was trending upwards, and then mid-season with the whole timeouts, never having a timeout, and then getting blown out 78-0 in the last 2 minutes of the first half, and then also bad challenges and not being able to use time management. Clock management. Things change very quick. Maybe Staley stays up to week 3 or 4 and they lose the locker room and they cut him next year and fire him. I don't know. In that case, you'd want to fire him before that, though, because you're not going to find a head coach mid-season.
I would really hope they fire him.
Right now, right? So you can find a guy to replace him.
I mean, look, he's a good defense coordinator. All of his defenses have been good, but he's just not, the game management side of it, he's just not good at it. He's gone sort of the opposite tack of a lot of coaches where instead of being super conservative once he's hired, he's gone for every 4th down.
Yep.
And it just hasn't worked, partially because his offense. He runs a poor scheme.
You don't have
partially just because he goes for it at times where it makes no sense.
On your own 30-yard line, 4th and 5.
So even though Justin Herbert had was third in the league in passing.
Yeah, passing. Yeah, he was top 5.
He was passing all over the place. He turned that into so few points.
Yeah,
because they
he only threw 22 touchdowns this year.
Right.
Herbert, not many.
I mean, it's
maybe 22.
It's unacceptable.
23 maybe.
Considering how talented that offense is, how talented Herbert specifically is, there's no reason for that team to be doing how bad it did.
25 touchdowns of Herbert on the passing, so
that's
It's for a guy that threw 38 last year and 31 as a rookie in 2020.
It's
so
ridiculous.
His career low going into this year. Season low was 31. He had 25 this year. And obviously his picks were just as much as what it usually is. 31-10 his rookie year, 38-15 his second year, and then now his junior third year, 25-10. So touchdowns went down. Interceptions basically stayed the same, just about, ratio wise. But you're right. I think they got to get rid of Staley. I'd say it was a collapse all around, though. The defense gave up 5 straight scoring possessions to Trevor Lawrence to end the game. Lawrence and the Jags were scoreless in the first 8 possessions with 5 turnovers. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence had an abysmal first half. But then, second half, the Chargers only got 3 points. Obviously, they had a missed field goal kick, and the kicker actually only missed 1 kick on the year. Actually, the highest percentage for a rookie kicker ever that had over 20 attempts. He missed a kick. He never missed a kick all year except 1 kick. The defense lit up 5 straight scoring drives, and they're off till we could get 3 points. It was a collapse all around.
Right, and just to go back to coaching, I mean, like we said, collapses aren't just what happened on the field. It's you have these inflection points where one play goes the wrong way, and that leads to everything going a little wrong until it's momentum rolling against you. And the thing is, it's how does that get started? Well, one of the ways it gets started is not running the ball when you have the lead. I mean,
that's it. That's the thing with the Falcons in the Super Bowl,
right? And
they didn't say aggressive. Keep your foot on the pedal.
And we saw the exact same thing, except I think with the Chargers they ran it even less.
Right.
Which I mean, this is a 27-point lead. I don't.
At half.
I kind of want to move on.
It's 27-7. It's 27-7 at half.
It's just how do you do that?
That's what I think Stage right. Just based off that game, no matter what happened in the regular season, exactly. It was bad in the regular season too, situational football, obviously, and clock management. But I think at the end of the day, you'd have to find him after that. I don't know. I mean, the Chargers have a really good roster. I have a friend that's a Chargers fan. I said to him, I was like, dude, the team's talented enough to win a Super Bowl. They are talented. Which me and you even talked. They have the talent to go to the AFC Championship. You even texted that. You were right. Easily. They do have the talent. The defense, they got Khalil Mack in the offseason. Obviously, J.C. Jackson they got as well when he was hurt. Didn't perform as well as he could have before his injury. But
Derwin James,
elite, got him healthy this year.
Yeah, I mean, their offense.
Joey Bosa had a costly penalty, though. They got the 2-point conversion on it.
Poor discipline.
And it ends the game. They lose by 1, and the 2-point conversion, they don't get that 2-point conversion. It's 30-30 probably because they would kick the extra point, and you end up losing the game on that.
A lot of blames go around.
Discipline, I even think of. I didn't even think of discipline. You're right. Discipline's a huge problem, which a lot of teams that are bad have poor discipline most of the time. It's not. I mean, talent obviously plays a role in it, right? Detroit, not a great team talent-wise, but they're disciplined.
Yes, absolutely.
Obviously, Campbell's a great coach as well. The Chargers should be better disciplined. I never thought of the discipline part. When I did a post-game reaction, I did not mention discipline. You're right, though.
And the thing is, it's a lot of times, when it comes out as at the worst moments, it's because the coach isn't keeping their players in line.
You're right.
And that's what happened. I mean, and I think Bosa was correct to be angry about the call. I mean, he was being helped.
You're right. Yep.
But
he was being held. And there was a false start of the play before on that play. He was mad about 2 days.
There was a lot going on. The refs were not great.
But no, it was bad. It was not great. I would agree with you. Yeah.
The fact that you
lose your cool like that, and then you get the penalty, and they go for 1.
It's like
they could have went for 1 for this point, and then they go for 2.
There's so much wrong to talk about. It's like you don't even know where to get started.
One thing to talk about in that game, which we'll move on to another one really quick, but I want to mention Trevor Lawrence. Obviously had a bad first half on 4 picks. To come back in the second half and throw 4 touchdowns, though, just shows how elite of a quarterback he is. Which he had an abysmal first half. I think it was the most interceptions thrown by a quarterback in the first half that went on to win the game. It was 4, I think, in a playoff game.
That's crazy.
And he ends up winning the game.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. The Jags did play a great game.
Jags
played
a
great game.
Great
Defense kept them in the game, letting Lawrence make plays.
And coaching. Yes. Doug Peterson versus Staley. Peterson's a great coach.
Who won a Super Bowl and couldn't get a job anywhere else.
Earned it. I don't know how he didn't get a job, considering he's such a great offensive-minded head coach. I don't know how you don't get him a job. Yeah. Which is nuts. But hey, it worked out. The Eagles don't have him anymore. Sirianni is a great coach, too. But at least he's with Trevor Lawrence. And, I'm a big Trevor Lawrence fan. You're a big Trevor Lawrence fan. So having a good, stable head coach on rather than having Urban Meyer is for the better, obviously. So what a game there for the Chargers, obviously. Losing that game, bad game for them. What a game for Trevor Lawrence, what I meant to say. Seahawks-Niners, we'll talk about for 1 second. Seahawks gave them the game in the first half. Yeah. I was proud of how hard they fought.
Yeah, I mean, all you could say about that is that the 49ers are a ridiculously talented team. They're well coached. There's not much to say. I mean, Brock Purdy's still playing great.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns in that game. 3 passing touchdowns, 18-30.
Christian McCaffrey's great. Nick Bosa is great.
The whole team. Deebo Samuel,
great.
George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk's their second option, maybe third option, basically, because McCaffrey's getting more passes out of the backfield.
Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk's their third option. 3 for 73 he had in the game. McCaffrey's 2 for 17 for a touchdown, but McCaffrey usually has more receptions than that. But the Seahawks are up 17-16 at half. I think the impressive thing for them is, just like we talked about during the break and we've mentioned over text, the Giants playing with house money this year.
Yeah.
The Seahawks playing with house money this year.
Absolutely.
The Jags playing with house money this year. No one expected any of these 3 teams to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I know I had the Giants in there, but besides that, that's just because I'm a Giants fan. Yeah. I mean, if I was a Giants fan, who knows?
No non-homer had the Giants.
Exactly.
Absolutely fair.
And the Seahawks, I mean, just being in that game, being up 17-16 shows. I mean, they have the right, which everyone knows Pete Carroll's a great head coach, but they have the right head coach to build around. They're in a rebuild while winning, just like the Giants are. And knowing you have the right coach when times are right and you get everything figured out, that's a big, big add. And Pete Carroll, his job was never really in question. I know they talked about retirement possibilities when Russ left.
I think if this year had gone poorly, I think
they probably would have moved on from him.
There's questions. But, if anyone was confused, Pete Carroll is a Hall of Fame coach.
He's definitely. Great. Because he was getting questioned coming into this year.
There were definitely a lot of questions.
There was.
With,
wasn't Russell Wilson the reason he was winning?
Right.
I think it might have been the reverse. Russell Wilson might have been winning because of him.
Maybe not, but...
At least more of the fact. Because Russell Wilson, at least under Pete Carroll, played, not conservative, but Geno Smith this year, I think, threw 29 touchdowns. I think it was 10 picks.
Yeah.
A lot more conservative football, throwing the safer passes where you're throwing into... You're going to throw a fade route. You're going to make sure there's not 2 guys, double high safety over the top that's going to make it, 2 guys, which Russ threw into double coverage a lot this year and didn't have that discipline that he had under Pete Carroll throwing the ball wise. But
I think main takeaway, 49ers have an incredible roster and they're well coached.
I mean, that's the thing. When you looked at that game, I thought the Seahawks would be in it because I thought rivalry game, having it be a divisional game, it's going to be close. I had the Seahawks being in it. I thought the Seahawks even could pull out a win because of this, which is crazy. Talent-wise, it's not close, the 2 teams. But I thought Brock Purdy being a rookie quarterback, he hasn't been in any situation where he's down by 2 touchdowns and has to make a big play in the second half. He hasn't been in any of those games because they've been up for the majority of the games he's played in.
For sure.
So that's why I worried about him. But he did prove me wrong. One guy that did prove me wrong, which we'll stay with the Niners. We'll cut back here to the Cowboys in a second. But Dak Prescott proved me wrong. But in that game, at least, that was one game of Dak Prescott. But I had no confidence in him going into this game, really. And he proved me wrong in that game. But what were you going to say about the Niners?
There's not much more to say about the Niners. I think just that...
Elite.
They're them and the Eagles, I think, are on a whole nother level. When
offense, defense,
talent in every position,
coaching,
well coached.
Discipline.
There's a reason they're 1 seeds, which
discipline, course, right? Too.
Very obvious, but it's all true.
The talent's there on both rosters. You're right. And Dak proved me wrong in that game. Played very well. Actually threw 4 touchdowns. Actually had a rushing touchdown as well. 5 touchdowns in that game, and no turnovers. Which I know his last game of the season against Washington, he struggled heavily in that game.
Yes.
Did not look like Dak Prescott. On his last couple games to finish the season. Another game though, Dolphins-Bills.
A real head scratcher.
The Dolphins, I didn't really give much of a shot. I thought maybe I said to my sister's boyfriend, Mike Hurley, I said I think maybe they keep it close in the first half, maybe be 21-14 at half, and then they pull away in the second half. Yeah. I didn't think come fourth quarter it would be Dolphins with the ball and just they're screwing around trying to get the play call in, which a lot of people criticize Skylar Thompson and Mike McDaniel. Here's the problem: you have 40 seconds to call a play. This is a quarterback that's never started a playoff game. I think it's only his second career start.
Yeah.
And also repeating the play, hearing it in your headset, knowing what the play is, and a loud crowd at Buffalo. Obviously, the Bills Mafia is going nuts.
Yeah.
Hearing the play and having to repeat it, and also make sure everyone's set up. It probably takes you a minute, realistically. And he has to do it in 40 seconds. The clock starts running the second the guy goes down. The previous play ends. So, head scratcher, obviously, but what'd you see out of the Bills, obviously, in their comeback pursuit? They start on the second half with a strip sack, and the Dolphins took the lead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like this game showed us the best and the worst of Josh Allen because it's like on one hand, he is prone to these plays that
turnover plays,
plays
2 interceptions, 3 fumbles, one of being lost. We had 5 potential turnovers with 3
risky
turnovers
plays, holding onto the ball too long. But on the other hand, he's Josh Allen. He can make throws that only a couple other guys can do.
Off his back foot.
He can run like a running back. I mean,
And run like a tight end, too.
Yeah.
The Bills have a tight end, but the running ability of a running back.
I'll say this much. It was very impressive from the Dolphins that they were to keep it close. And it was impressive from the Bills that even though they had a bunch of plays that really didn't go their way, just
I would agree.
Unlucky bounces with fumbles, stuff like that, they were able to rally and they were able to get the win.
And win's a win at the end of the day.
Yes, and that's what it comes down to. And all I'll say is, as long as they tighten up their game, I still feel confident with picking them against basically anyone.
I like that team. I like that roster. And here's the one thing about that game, which if you look at the box score, right? I'm looking at the box score here. Skylar Thompson, 18 of 45, 220, a touchdown and 2 picks. You look at that and you'd say, wow, he had a really bad game. 18 of 45, only 1 touchdown and 2 picks. He actually didn't play bad.
No, I will.
The line's not good. The line's not good at all.
Considering the circumstances,
the stat line is not good.
Considering the circumstances of playing your first playoff start
at Buffalo with that pass rush
against the Buffalo, like that,
with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill dropping 3 big balls in the first.
I mean,
quarter.
that's real. Honestly, that's really the story. Is
Jalen Waddle didn't show up. He 1 catch for 8 yards, 1 rush for 8 yards, and then 3 catches for 44 yards. And I think all of them came in the second half.
Yeah.
Maybe even the fourth quarter. Off the top of my head here, it was definitely third quarter and fourth quarter.
A lot of costly drops, and I mean that's really for both sides. This was just a very mistake-heavy game, which maybe was the weather. I don't know. Was it particularly?
I'd say
cold?
weather, and then
I don't know.
I would say weather, and also probably realistically, their expectations going into this game, the Bills are going to blow them out.
That's true too.
When you're playing as an underdog, playing with house money again, the Dolphins had no expectations about Tua.
You play scrap.
Exactly, and it's a divisional game once again. The Bills did give up 7 sacks. That's probably a worry, I would say.
That is a worry. Although
the Bills pass rush, the Bengals pass rush isn't elite. I mean, Trey Hendrickson's good, and B.J. Hill actually gets to the quarterback a lot more than they did with the Giants.
We're a big fan of B.J. Hill.
B.J. Hill is solid. I mean, trade him for Billy Price, which we need a center at the time. But all in all, though, I think the Bills probably, which I'm going to pick the Bengals this game just because I like Joe Burrow more than I like Josh Allen. There's nothing against Josh Allen. I love Burrow. I'm a big Burrow fan, so I like Burrow in this game. But if I was betting money, I'd probably go with the Bills. But sake of the podcast, and I'm just talking, so no money on the line there. I can say I like the Bengals.
We're not saying we're betting.
No, we're not betting.
But if we were to bet,
yes, he'd be going Bills. I'd be going Bengals. I'd be going fan wise. I'm going Bengals. If I were to be betting, I'd probably go the Bills, especially because the Bills have a better offense and defense all around. And the Bengals, which we were talking about in the break, Jonah Williams, their starting left tackle, is banged up and actually could miss this game.
May not play, and I believe they've lost their left guard and maybe the right tackle as well.
Lyle Collins out for the year. Yep.
They're having injury troubles on an already not that talented offensive line. I mean, it's going to be very tough going against the Bills, who have one of the best pass rushes in the league.
Definitely.
I mean, just in the trenches is where most games are won and lost, and the Bills are going to roll over them. Then again, anything can happen. It's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. They've made magic happen before.
Definitely. It's going to be a great game for sure. It's going to be high scoring. I read a report here. Zach Taylor, head coach of the Bengals, said Jonah Williams, he suffered a dislocated kneecap injury in that game on Sunday against the Ravens. He couldn't walk, nor could Alex Kappa, their starting right guard, could not walk without resistance on Sunday. I don't know how either guy's going to play against a ferocious D-line in any game. I mean, even if they're playing against the worst team in the league, just playing an NFL game with a dislocated kneecap, you're not going to be at your best.
Yeah.
Against a defense that only got 4 sacks against the Dolphins O-line, which isn't that great besides Teron Armstead, which is better than it was over the last few years. But considering they're going up against an even better pass rush now, an even better defense all around.
It's going to be tough for them. But, again, it's like this is nothing new for Joe Burrow. As long as he's been in the NFL, he's been playing with pretty mediocre O-lines, and he went into the Super Bowl. Anything can happen.
Definitely.
I'm still picking the Bills.
I'll go Burrow in this game. Just I the Bengals in my bracket too before. So I'll stay consistent with them. Their offensive line is a worry, but they did go to Super Bowl like you said, even with the worst offensive line, one of the worst offensive lines in football. I forget where they ranked, 1 through 32, but they were one of the worst in the league. And obviously, Jonah Williams is a big loss. I mean, he's been consistent for them over the last few years. He missed his first year with an injury, was drafted, I think, with the torn ACL, and then ended up playing his next 2 or 3 years. Even with the injury, played pretty well. After the injury is what I meant to say. Played well after the injury. And usually torn ACL, you don't really come back the same guy. And he came back. The best offensive lineman, Lyle Collins, is pretty good too, but he's out as well. So I'm going to root for the Bengals this game. I do like Zach Taylor. I like Joe Burrow. Shout out to our family friend, Timmy Loftus. My family has the best friends in the Cape, the bestest of friends. Shout out to the Key family as well. You guys are always listening. I appreciate it. Timmy Loftus is a big Bengals fan because he likes Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow. I am with them. So shout out to West Ennis as well, the Cape. Our place in the Cape, West Ennis. So I give a few quick shout outs. He's texting me live, so I had to. But that's the thing, though. I like the Bengals. I like Zach Taylor. I like Joe Burrow. I'm going to go with the Bengals. I also do like, which the Bills' secondary isn't that great. Davis White's not playing as great, and then Dane Jackson got banged up in the game last week. You're looking at Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. With Joe Mixon. I mean, it's going to be a game.
It's going to be a high-scoring game. Group. Yeah.
But if you had to pick, you'd probably go Bills. Yeah. I'd go Bengals, and that's, at the end of the day, I don't think anyone faults either person picking either way, just because they're both great teams. I'd say the Bengals the Bills are healthier, and obviously have a better team all around. I would say
and
offense, defense,
advantage, which
is big in this game.
Yes, especially no one wants to travel to Buffalo.
No, I mean, look at what happened. The Dolphins couldn't even hear a play. They couldn't even get the play call down because it's tough to hear in that environment. Another game we have to check out here is the one last game here. We had divisional game we had to talk about. Ravens Bengals. We'll give a quick second. We were just talking about the Bengals. Ravens get in the game.
Yeah, I don't.
The turning point of the game was Tyler Huntley. They were on the 1 yard line. It's a 17-17 game here. Tyler Huntley tries to go over the top on the 1 yard line. It's about the 1.5 yard line, so it's about too far out maybe to try to go over the top and dive. Tries to go vertical and dive into the end zone. Gets hit. Sam Hubbard picks it up, returns it for a touchdown. Bengals win the game 24-17. That was a turning point in the game right there. And there was you couldn't recover after
14-point swing or 10-point swing.
14-point swing because 7 versus 7, or you would have got a field goal, right?
Right. Two-score swing. I mean, it's a backbreaker.
You're right. And that was late in the game's fourth quarter.
Nothing against Huntley. I think he's a fine backup, but I think at this point it's a little concerning that considering Lamar's play style and the fact that this is not the first time he's been injured.
Yep.
They probably have to find someone who's like
that could step in a legit play, yeah.
And especially since I don't know, Huntley's
a free agent after this year, I believe.
Right, and he's not
so is Lamar, both.
And he's not a great runner either.
No, I mean he's got a little bit. He's not Lamar. He went 9 of 54 in this game, but he's not like elite. He's not going to make you miss.
And obviously
like Lamar.
You're going to be limited by what
Definitely.
backups can run and pass, but
definitely. He's not elite, right? He's good. He's a mobile quarterback, I would say, but he's definitely not. He's not elite runner. I mean, he's not a 54 in this game, but he's not. He doesn't have the speed of Lamar Jackson. Doesn't even have, I would say, the cuts of the decisiveness of Daniel Jones, knowing when to cut in and out or go out of bounds, all that. DJ didn't actually.
I will say that after the game, there was a lot of discontent coming from the Ravens.
J.K. Dobbins, running back, was
I think entirely fair. Dobbins, great running back. How many carries?
13 of 62 in the game. Also added in 4 catches of 43 yards and a touchdown. So 17 touches for over 110 yards plus with a touchdown.
In a game like that, I agree with him. And I don't know. I like Harbaugh. I think he's a good coach.
I like him a lot. I respect him.
I don't know. Like Greg Roman, their offensive coordinator, like he's good at making these offenses for running quarterbacks, but it does seem like he gets figured out. And I think at this point, like...
Is he going to be fired, or did he get fired?
I don't know.
They're talking about it.
I don't know. Because
they were talking about it for sure. I did see a report they were talking about it. Yeah, he's still there. Yeah. He's still there.
I just think at this point, the Ravens have kind of hit their ceiling. I mean, even if Lamar was healthy, it's like maybe they win this game. But, like...
They're not the...
I think at this point, they're just not contenders with this current coaching and talent and whatever.
It's hard to say because I'm a huge Lamar fan. It's hard to say, but it's just a reality situation.
It's not even a knock against Lamar.
It's a reality situation. It's a team. They don't have any receivers. I mean, their best receiver is the wide receiver that is... They drafted him 2 years ago. It wasn't Duvernay. It is... I'm trying to think of his name here. I don't know why. Here's the thing. When you try to think of a random player off the top of your head, you do struggle. But that's the thing. They don't really have a number 1 receiver. That's the one thing Lamar needs. And that's one thing they've been missing for years now, is a receiver, legitimate number 1 wideout. They're going to get that now that Lamar's a free agent. They're going to say, hey, we're going to get, I don't know, a guy like, I don't think the Raiders would trade Devontae Adams, but Devontae Adams, I don't know.
No. And now it's like, maybe they find a guy in the late first round.
That's probably what they're going to do.
But, I mean, they haven't tried in the past, so I don't know. We'll see.
That's probably what we have to do, right? Draft a guy late.
They probably have to draft. I mean, there's a bunch of teams that are going to be gunning for wide receivers this year. And the pool is pretty thin. I mean, there's a couple top guys who are great, but the pool is pretty thin. I don't want to talk too much about draft.
Which we will talk draft though at some point.
At some point,
we will get into draft talk, of course, as we always do.
I think the Ravens have a lot of problems. I think they're a talented roster, but they've got a lot of obvious problems.
Rashad Bateman is their number 1 wideout. He was out. He wasn't even in the game.
I like Rashad Bateman.
He's got some build. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
And then obviously, which my friend Timmy just pointed out, traded Marquise Brown too. Marquise Brown is
yes.
That was a piece. That was their number one. He's not really he's. I don't know. At least in Lamar, he probably needed a better number one. He's not a bad one.
I think if you're looking at Rashad Bateman,
he's a 2,
and Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews, I think that as a whole is
Andrews,
enough.
Factor that.
I mean, Mark Andrews being one of the best receiving tight ends definitely helps, but like
definitely, they gotta get more options.
He's not Pat Mahomes, and Mark Andrews isn't Kelsey.
They don't have that connection. They have a good connection.
Right.
They have a good connection. Probably second, third best, but it's not like
it's not number one quarterback to number one tight end.
He's not open every play too. Mark Andrews gets open, but Kelsey, it seems like every single play is open.
Yeah, Kelsey's on a whole, and it seems like they were trying to thinking, oh well, we have Rashad Bateman, we can afford to give up Marquise Brown. We still have Mark Andrews. Look at what Kansas City's done, and it's like,
and it's
not comparable.
It's not. I mean, Kansas City got Marcus Valdez-Scantling and also Juju, which. Marcus Valdez-Scantling's probably a 3 on the Packers, right? And he probably still is at 3 or 4 on the Chiefs, but got Kadarius Toney. They did build around Mahomes.
It's Pat Mahomes.
You lose him, but you get 3 receivers.
Nothing is Lamar Jackson. He's just not Pat Mahomes.
Is anything Pat Mahomes, too? That's another thing. I ranked all the quarterbacks. Mahomes, it's just like I had Mahomes as my number 1 quarterback in the playoffs going into last week, so I ranked all 14. I had Mahomes at 1. I believe it was Burrow at 2, Lawrence at 3. But I think even though Burrow's so good, I think Josh Allen's good. I think obviously Lawrence is good. I think Mahomes is just on a different level. I think it's different. It's different. It limits mistakes. He'd never throw 4 interceptions in a game, at least like Lawrence, and he probably wouldn't have 5 potential turnovers like Josh Allen did. And Joe Burrow, which Joe Burrow just doesn't turn the ball. He's not really turnover prone.
No, first
game of the year, 4
but Joe
turnovers.
Burrow can't do the same things that Mahomes can do.
Exactly.
And that's what it comes. I mean, he's got pretty elite arm strength, but I think Mahomes, Josh Allen, and maybe Herbert are in a different tier as far as arm strength. Maybe Lawrence as well.
Lawrence is getting there, which he doesn't really in it out enough in the NFL to throw those 70-yard balls. Which, I mean, the offense really has been those 20-yard chunk plays, 30-yard chunk plays, trying to throw 20 yards downfield to Lawrence, but Lawrence to Christian Kirk. But
anyway, to wrap it up, Ravens have to make some changes. Bengals still a very scary team, despite their obvious holes in personnel. Definitely.
I would agree with you. So we'll give a quick rundown, just the 4 games, say what we got. Jaguars, Chiefs. Who wins this game? Probably got to go Chiefs, I'd imagine. Right?
It's hard to argue against the Chiefs. Jags looked great last week. I mean, they've got a lot of young talent, especially on the offensive side. I mean, they're a scary team. With that being said, the Chiefs are a juggernaut. Andy Reid is a great coach. I just finished praising Pat Mahomes and Kelsey. I mean, they're just, I don't know, they're just on a whole nother level these last few years, and I'm not going to bet against them.
I'm going to go Chiefs in this game as well. I think most people, 99% of people, are going to go Chiefs, and 1% probably Jaguars fans. I think the Jags can keep it close, and as I said, I prefaced with this during the break when I was talking to Dylan. I said I'm probably going to go them keep me close just because I'm a big Trevor Lawrence fan. I want to root for him to be close to that game. But I think it could probably end up being, it'll probably be high scoring considering the Chiefs' offense is really good, and the Jags if the Jags want to win this game, they're probably going to have to score over 30 points, right? You'd imagine, because the Chiefs aren't going to score 30.
I think it would really require timely turnovers,
in probably a big play or two on special teams even, where you get an advantage there. In special teams, sometimes the difference maybe between a team that's an underdog, which you get a big play, a big kick return, something, or a fumble or a muff punt. I'm going to go the Jags losing this game, even though I'm a big Trevor Lawrence fan. I think you just got to go Chiefs in a closer game. I think it'll be closer, though, than most probably
give it. Shout out to Travis Etienne. I was a little bit of a hater. He's proven me wrong.
Stud running back.
I did not think he would be worth the first-round pick, and I'm pleasantly surprised to be wrong. He's been very good this year. I hope he keeps doing well.
He's a great back. And I think the one thing with him is that chemistry he had with Lawrence, obviously, in college.
It is funny that there's been this trend of guys who played in college being drafted together now. It's very funny.
Jamar Chase and Burrow, it works.
Yeah, Tua and Waddle.
And, hey, you're seeing that in this AFC weekend.
It works, apparently.
In the AFC Divisional round, you're seeing both of those teams, the Bengals, obviously, and the Jags drafting former teammates, and it does work. Your number one player in offense based in college, I'd say Etienne was probably that number one, even though Higgins was great, Justin Ross was good. I'd say Etienne was probably their number one option for Lawrence, running the ball wise, it handed to Etienne. But Etienne got a lot of passes out of the backfield too. And then obviously Chase, which I don't know, you could argue Jefferson was Chase had more touchdowns, but you could argue Jefferson was the number one.
They were 1A, 1B. That whole team was unreal.
Stacked. Derek Stingley in that team, and the whole team is just elite all around. So I'm gonna go Chiefs in that game. We'll say the Giants Eagles just to the end, which we already talked about most. We'll just give one more quick recap. We'll move to the Sunday game, 3:00. Bengals Bills. We talked about it mostly for the most part. We'll recap one more time. You got the Bills. I got the Bengals for the sake of it.
Yeah. Again, I think home field advantage counts a lot. I think it's good that the Bills kind of had a sloppy game. They're like got a little scared.
You wake up. Your face hits the water, and you're like, now I gotta wake up.
Hopefully they'll tighten up and play a bit more disciplined. But what it comes down to me is in the trenches, the Bengals are below average at O-line and decent at D-line, and the Bills are just elite at both sides. And it's going to be tough if the Bills get an early lead for the Bengals to stop them.
I was very confident in the Bengals last week when I made my bracket. That was before John Williams went down. I was very confident in that team. Before the other guy went down as well. I was very confident in that team. I thought they would beat the Bills in this game. I had them beating the Bills. And now after the report that Jonah Williams couldn't even walk, which I saw, it was after the game Sunday. I didn't know about the guy not being able to walk. I just saw that now here live with you here in the studio. I worry about them now in that game. I'm still going to stay with them because I had my original pick. I like Burrow a lot. I'm a big Burrow fan. I like Zach Taylor a lot. And I think at the end of the day, I'm going to stay with that pick just because I like those guys. But my confidence definitely went down with that injury.
Yeah.
To Jonah Williams, even more important than the other guy. But both injuries. I think it was Brown and Williams, right? You're not going to survive many games with 2 or 3 offensive linemen hurt. Alex Capo was hurt. And then obviously Williams being out. And La'el Collins being already out. It's just a tough loss, which I don't even know much about Alex Capo. I don't even know much, but just considering he's a starter, you don't really many starters left. It's a loss.
And it's never good for your O-line to be looking for chemistry in the middle of a playoff game.
To gel, yeah.
It's tough. And,
it is.
I mean, they're a very talented team. I think they'll probably score a decent amount. But it's just that's such a tough matchup for any team, especially the Bengals being all banged up.
I would probably imagine that some plays where the tight ends have to block more than Croft would have to block probably more. Tyler Croft's their tight end, right? So they'll probably have to block a little more than he typically would in most games, considering they probably have to slow down that Bills pass rush somehow, and maybe even Mixon steps up, or P-Ryan would probably actually step up more in those plays of the pass block because they don't want to get Mixon hurt. But realistically, they're going to have to probably go max protect to some degree if those two guys were to be out. Cap were to be out, and obviously Jonah was being out. They'd have to go with that. But I like Burrow more than I like Allen, so I'm just going to go with Burrow there. Cowboys 49ers, Sunday night, 6:30. It's tough. I doubted the Cowboys last week, or this week I should mean, this past week, on the weekend. I was not confident. I had no confidence going into that week with Dak Prescott, which you never know the Prescott you're going to get. You pointed that out during the break. Who knows what Dak's going to be? Is Dak going to be the 4 touchdowns, no picks? Or is going to be the Dak 2 touchdowns, 3 picks? Or 2 touchdowns, 2 picks? Yeah. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to go Niners in this game, but Brock Purdy has not been pressured yet in a game where he's down 2 touchdowns, in the fourth quarter, he has to make a big play, which last week was pretty close. Obviously, with them being down at half to the Seahawks was tough. But I'm going to go Niners in this game just because I can't really pick the Cowboys. I think the Niners are the better team. But I think the Niners, at some point, I don't know if their run's going to last just because I don't know if I have all the confidence in the world in Brock Purdy. I know he's a rookie quarterback and he's playing very well right now. Don't want to take anything away from him. I love his story being Mr. Relevant and obviously getting a lot of production being a guy that had no expectations going into the year and being a third-string quarterback. But I don't know. He hasn't really had a high-pressure situation. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think this is going to be the real test just because I don't think in all the games that Purdy's played, he's really faced a team with a decent pass rush. I would have to go back.
For the most part, you're right. I
mean,
the division's not really that good. Anyway,
right. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And, I mean, Micah Parsons is just ridiculous. And, it does feel like a game where all it would take is one bad sack to crack things open. Mm-hmm. But I still can't pick against the 49ers right now. They are just, Purdy's, regardless of Purdy's performance, I feel like they're so talented on offense. They can rely on other guys. They can make plays without, relying on Purdy's arm or, his confidence. And at the same time, they still have one of the most talented defenses out there. And, again, we don't know what Dak is going to show up. I don't want to... I feel like if I, shit on him, he's going to play well.
He's going to turn it around, yeah.
So all I'll say is,
that's how it works.
Nick Bosa
always.
is the best defensive end in the league.
I agree.
So the playing across from him is very difficult, regardless of who you are.
Oh, their D-line's still good. They have a great D-line. And then even if you look at their secondary, still good, too. All around, Fred Warner. You were the biggest fan of freshman year. You were right. Yeah. I think you said freshman year, which I said Bobby Wagner at the time was the best linebacker in the league. But you said he was the best. Fred was the best before. And you were right about that. He's a stud. He's a great player.
Yeah.
if you look at it, we talking pass rush for Purdy, who he's faced. He's 6-0 in 6 starts, 7-0 in games he's played, and he got his first chance to play December 4th when Jimmy G went down against the Dolphins. And they win that game against the Dolphins on December 4th. And they've won every game since. But let me just run over the teams really quick, the pass rushers he had to face. Dolphins, Bucks, Seahawks, Commanders. Commanders are pretty good. Raiders, Max Crosby's good. Obviously, Chandler Jones said it was good of a year, but he's good. Cardinals, Seahawks. I mean, he didn't really face an elite D-line, but some good D-lines. And the Bucks should be better than they are. I'll say that. They should have been better than they were. But I guess Commanders and Commanders probably the best D-line there, you'd say. Maybe the Seahawks.
We also got to,
Dolphins with Bradley Chubb. I think they had Chubb at that time.
Yeah,
so
we also have to mention he does have Trent Williams protecting on the blind side.
Probably, would you say, the best left tackle?
It's him or Andrew Thomas.
Andrew Thomas is one or two.
I believe Trent Williams was the first team All-Pro.
Yeah.
I think they were basically 1A, 1B. About as good of a left tackle as you can have in the league.
Both of those guys. In opposite ends of career.
Exactly.
Career,
right,
exactly.
Nuts,
which is nuts, but both bookend left tackles.
Right. I mean, it's hard to pick against the 49ers.
I agree with you. I'm going to go with the Niners in this game as well. I think you got to go there. And then Giants-Eagles, we already previewed for the most part. I'm going Giants in this game, which I didn't take them to go to the Super Bowl. I have them losing that next game to the Niners in the NFC Championship, just because I know last time the Giants made the playoffs, I had the Giants going to the Super Bowl. I felt like that jinxed it. So I have the Giants may win a couple of games in this bracket here. But I think the Giants beat the Eagles this week. They're going in after beating the Vikings, the defense playing very well. Obviously, like we just talked about at the beginning of the episode, pulling it together after a roughing the passer penalty, which was a tough call. Those are games the Giants typically lose. The slate and drop, that's a game we typically lose after the roughing the passer. We usually lose games after that. The Eagles, I know they're well rested, but the Giants gave them a game with second and third stringers in Week 18 with players that, I follow the Giants heavily. There were plays in that game I didn't even hear of for the most part. Like, there were some guys on defense which I didn't even know of playing in that game because the Giants just didn't want to risk injury, and it worked out. Staley plays all the Chargers guys. Mike Williams goes out. Huge loss.
Yeah.
The Giants bench everyone, and it works out. I'm going to go with the Giants winning this game. And I'm fine with saying that, and I think Daniel Jones has proven that he is the top quarterback in this league. I made a bold statement in the post-game recap I did the other night, and I'm going to stand by it, and I'm going to be called crazy by most people, just like I was called crazy when I said Daniel Jones was a top 15 quarterback last year and a top 10 going into this year. I was called crazy both times by most people, even some Giants fans, not all. Although you always respected DJ's talents. You never the one coming at me about it. But I had DJ on Sunday after that game. I said top 5, and I was fine saying that. Maybe top 7, lowest I would put him. But top 5 just because he's my boy, but probably top 7 is the lowest I'd put him. Right. Lowest. But regardless of the fact, DJ's rolling right now. The Giants are rolling right now. The Eagles have a lot more to play for in this game because the Giants are playing with house money at the end of the day. And I think the team that plays with no fear, those are the most dangerous teams to play. What do you got in this game?
I am also going to pick Giants, frankly, just because I'm a Giants fan.
Love it.
I don't want to... I don't think it's entirely a homer pick, though. I think Hurts is still a big question mark. We don't know,
What Hurts are you going to get?
Right. He's playing injured. We know that much. We don't know if he's going to be as mobile as he was early in the season. So I think that's a big question mark. Their all-pro right tackle is playing injured.
With a brace, right, or something? Or
I don't know. I don't know what Lane Johnson's doing.
He's playing.
He's playing yeah. So, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I think if Ojulari plays, if everyone plays, they got a couple of good breaks, they limit turnovers, I think this is a winnable game, and
mm-hmm.
And again, it's hard to beat the same team 3 times.
Definitely.
I think the most comparable situation would be, I believe, in 2007, the Giants lost twice to the Cowboys in the regular season, and then beat them in the playoffs, or it might have been 2011. I'd have to check.
I think it was 2007. I think it was 2007.
Okay. It can happen.
Because 2011, Victor Cruz got that great touchdown off the sidelines on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. So I think it was 2007. We also lost the Patriots before the Super Bowl in 2007.
It does happen. It can happen. And I think the last few weeks, the Giants have looked like on another level. I think even that Vikings game that we lost, we played incredibly well, I think.
Definitely.
Against a more talented team. And, basically every team we've played has been more talented besides maybe the Colts.
Yeah, for the most part. Right. Roster-wise, we really came into this year with no expectations.
Yeah, and
we'd have no caps. We had no cap space.
They've played disciplined. They've made the big plays at the right time. I think this is... I mean, I think the set, 7.5 is the line? I think that's an entirely fair line.
Eagles minus 7.
I'm still going to pick the Giants. I'm a Giants fan.
Yeah, huge.
I think they have an opportunity if things go their way with regards to injuries.
Love it. I'm with you there on the Giants pick. I think it's going to be a great game, though. No matter what happens, I think we're going to be in it, and the pressure's on them.
Yes, and actually, I do want to make one more point about the 49ers-Cowboys game. I do not trust McCarthy at all. I think he's a bad coach.
Yep.
I think, frankly, he held down Rodgers for almost a decade. I don't want to put it all on him. You know, Rodgers certainly has his share in the blame, but frankly, any other coach who goes a decade with Aaron Rodgers and only wins one Super Bowl...
Probably has three Super Bowls. McVay would have 3 Super Bowls with Rodgers. I agree.
It's hard to have... Not that I'm, like, a giant fan of Shanahan or whatever, but, like... it's hard to have confidence in Mike McCarthy to show up in a big game.
Definitely.
His history.
Time up. That's something McCarthy. You'd think a coach that's been coaching the league for so long with no time, the clock management, when to call timeouts, and know when to, okay, let's maybe kick the field goal, let's maybe go for go for 2, whatever it may be. Go for it on 4th down, let's not go for it, let's punt it. He doesn't have that awareness.
And I feel like his teams have a tendency to lose the thread in tough situations. Like, I feel like there's been a lot of talented Packers teams that have almost gotten there, and then things just don't go their way.
13-win teams, 3 straight years.
And they unwind. Yeah, it's like...
That was even with the first couple times. They've won 12 or 13 games. 11 games, most of their wins in the last 6-7 years.
Yeah. I mean...
Just didn't get anywhere.
I mean...
This year didn't.
Yeah, sort of like the Colts with Peyton Manning, but, I mean, the Colts with Peyton Manning were more successful.
We're a competitive team always, too, yeah. Which the Packers, for the most part, they were always good, but that playoff game last year, they just didn't show up. They put 10 points on the Niners, I think it was. Yeah, at least 10 points with the best offense in the league with Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones.
Yeah, there was no excuse.
Arguably, which Rodgers was MVP last year, 2 straight years. Best quarterback in the league last year, maybe top 3. Mahomes probably would still take over him. But either way, regardless, top 3 quarterback. The number 1 wideout, my eyes, Devontae Adams, maybe top 3 in most eyes. And then Aaron Jones is top 4 to 5 to 6 back in the league, talent-wise.
And being backed up by A.J. Dillon.
A.J. Dillon, exactly. You're right. Our boy BC Eagle there. But that's the thing, though. That team should have won more. Last year could have been the Super Bowl window. It was Devontae Adams last year.
I mean...
That was without McCarthy, but regardless, last year was their Super Bowl window. And then they also had a year in 2016 against the Giants. That roster was elite. When they beat the Giants in that playoff game, that roster was elite, and they fell short. That team actually might have been better than the team last year before.
The mid-2010s Packers had a bunch of opportunities to win. They were teams that were more talented than this current Cowboys roster and couldn't get it done, couldn't even make the Super Bowl. Frankly, I don't have a lot of confidence in him.
I'm with you there. I would probably say... I don't know. If I had to put a score prediction on it, I think they'll still be in the game, but I think if it comes down to a close game, I don't think the Cowboys... If the Cowboys want to win, they have to win by like 10 or more. If it's within 1 possession, I think they just win that. Which Brock Purdy hasn't been in a situation yet where it's like that, but I have more confidence about that. I would probably with Dak at this point, even though Dak did prove me wrong last night in Monday Night Football. I would probably go Cowboys winning that game by... I mean, not Cowboys. Niners. Excuse me here. Not the Cowboys. Reboot, rewind there. I'm going to go the Niners winning that game, though, but I think it's going to be a close game, competitive.
Yeah.
34-31, type something like that.
But I could see like a 31-28. No, that's
31-24.
No, that's a little too close.
31-20?
Yeah, 31-23, we'll say.
And Maher with the extra points, 4 missed extra points last night. That's actually a worry. Would you say it's a worry? I think it's a worry. Even though they won.
It has to be. And he's been almost perfect this year, right?
He was. He was a great kicker in the regular season. And he's been good for the last few years. But I think in the playoffs, I don't know if they make a quick adjustment change like right now and make a change.
You can't bench him.
You can't bench him because you got all concept in the regular season. But here's the thing. Every point in the playoffs matters. Yeah. Last night it did because you were up by 4 possessions with 3 minutes to go or 3 possessions.
That's a miracle situation. It's like they're not going to get those breaks.
Not against the Niners, a team that's good all around on offense, defense, and well coached. You're not going to get that.
Yeah, Cowboys are a real enigma.
I would agree with you. I think
we'll see.
We'll see what happens in the game. I think it'll be interesting. Right before we close, which I wanted to talk a little Knicks, which we don't go crazy with it. We'll touch on them just for a second. Maybe touch on the Yankees for a second as well. Which I always do this, which we'll do this at the end, the last thing, which all my friends that have come in, I've had them say their top 3, which you're not from Boston, we're going to go to New York, which we had Dan here once. Dan did his top 3 New York / New Jersey athletes. Your top 3 favorite New York athletes, whatever it may be, current or past. You're not gonna do that now. Just think of it because I know it usually takes some people time to think. So have that in the back of your mind. But let's talk. We'll start with the Knicks just really quick. 7 of their last 10, 7-3 in their last 10.
playing very good basketball now. For a team that was shaky at one point in the middle of the season, which you actually called one of their win streaks at one point. They won, like, what was it, 10 or 11 in a row?
I think it was 8.
8 in a row, is it? Okay, 8 in a row. I think it was like 11 out of 12, though. It was a great run.
Stretch. They've been a streaky team.
But let's talk. We talked about it on the way in, actually, on the way to the studio. Brunson, Randall, RJ Barrett. All three of them playing good basketball right now. RJ Barrett averaging 22 points a game over his last 22 games. I think it's 21.6.
He's been playing pretty well.
38% from 3.
Yeah. I mean, it's really been a team effort. Quentin Grimes did not start the year as a starter. Now he's basically starting.
Yeah, he's a player.
He's been huge. And, I mean, RJ's been frustrating, but I will say that the last few games, I've been pleasantly surprised because he's been taking less shots. Because, frankly, I think they're at their best when they're spreading the ball around because they've got so many scoring options between Randall and Brunson, and now that Grimes has emerged as a legit starter, like, I think RJ doesn't have to be taking 20 shots a game. You know, if he finds his three-point shot again, which I think he will at some point, you know, he's coming off an injury, I think he maybe, you know, he moves back into being the number one shot taker. But, like, right now, I think they're in a good spot where, you know, Randall's sort of the number one, but they're spreading the ball around. You know, their bench guys are getting good minutes. I think they're in a good spot.
Definitely. I mean, they're in the 6th seed in the East right now, and if you look at the East right now...
The East is tough.
The East is tough, but there's some teams that are underperforming, right? Like, the Heat, underperforming. I mean, they're 24-21, but I thought they were going to be
Hawks.
2 or 3 in the East.
Yeah.
Hawks are underperforming.
Raptors
even.
Yeah.
A lot of teams, actually, you know, they're that... Hawks definitely underperforming because people had them as a 2 or 3 or 4 seed if they made the DeJounte Murray trade and just aren't there. But to evaluate where the Knicks are right now, though, they're in a great position, I think.
I think
in a great position, considering they're 6th seed right now, and they lost 4 in a row, 1 point over break.
Yeah, I think the joke going into the season was that the Knicks had paid a lot of money to just miss the playoffs, which I think was a possibility. But I think at this point, the team has at least proven that they're going to be in the playoffs.
I think they'll be
in it. Which is good to see.
And even if they were to be a 7 or an 8, they're going to win the play-in, I think. You know, they'll be in the playoffs. I agree with you there. Depending, because they're all separated by a game just about. You know, they're the 6th seed, and the 12 is separated by 4.5 games. So still actually not a bad stretch, though.
The 1 to 5 in the East are pretty far removed from the rest.
Yeah.
They're 3-1. Yeah.
I think the Heat should be there talent-wise. They just, I mean, Bam's one of the best forwards in the league, power forwards in the league, centers. I mean, compared to 4 or 5, he's one of the best in the league. Jimmy Butler is just an electric player once it comes to playoffs, and Tyler Hero obviously he was a cold shooter. I watched the game yesterday. He was like 1 of 8 for 3 in his first thing in the fourth quarter or whatever. I was like, that's unlike him.
They're a weird team because I feel like most teams in the NBA are sort of built for the regular season, and then they sort of don't have the right mix for the playoffs.
Yep.
I feel like the Heat are the opposite, where they have a bunch of players who's, due to their skill set, are able to perform well in the playoffs, but like doesn't necessarily translate in the regular season.
Definitely.
Like, I don't know.
The coaching also too is he's built to win in the playoffs. He's always going to run.
I don't know.
It's Spoelstra. He's a great coach. I love Spoelstra.
Yeah, they're. I don't know. I think
it's an odd team.
If they make the playoffs, which right now they are on track to do, they are scary. Just because it's Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo.
I would agree.
They're a scary combo. You know, I wouldn't want to face them.
Jimmy locks in the playoffs. He locks in and just goes off.
Yeah, and he just has like, he has one of the weirdest skill sets of like a current shooting guard because it's like he doesn't have a great 3-point shot.
Not a great shooter, no.
But he can hit shots from anywhere on the court. He's a great defender. Like he has the perfect skill set.
Smart player.
Yeah, he has the perfect skill set to carry a team through a tough playoff game, but he does not have the perfect skill set to carry a mediocre team into the playoffs.
Definitely.
He's not like a Luka, where he's going to be getting 35 points a game.
I would agree with you there. We'll talk Celtics for 1 second.
Yeah, of course.
Celtics have won 7 in a row. I talk Clippers too. I mean, the Clippers have not been playing great basketball, but Celtics have won 7 in a row. I do think, which I thought the Celtics, which we talked about before, when they were shooting 40% from 3, I still think they're too reliant on the 3 ball. I think come playoffs, which a 7-game series, you're probably not going to be cold from 3-4 games out of 7, realistically. You'll probably shoot roughly 38% from 3, but they still put up a lot of threes every game.
Yeah.
But Robert Williams coming back has been huge for that team in the paint. Blake Griffin was getting starting minutes basically at one point, like a month and a half ago, when Robert Williams was out and Al Horford was out. And the team's rolling, but if you look at the East, though, teams have caught up. The Nets have caught up. I know Durant's out, but the Nets have caught up. The Bucks even, I mean, Middleton still, I don't know what the situation is there, but...
They're in a funk. I think they've... the Celtics, I mean, they've just been rolling. They had a little bit of a slide in the middle.
They had a stretch. They lost a few games,
a slide, but, I mean, compared
to... They lost 5 out of 6 games at one point. Almost lost to the Lakers. That was their one win in that road trip. They lost to the Clippers and the Kings.
Right.
Yeah. The Lakers somehow... They were up in that game. The Celtics were up by, I think, 20 at half or something. The Lakers went on a 42-12 run, which I sent you.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's a 3-point game with 15 seconds ago. Jason hits a 3 to tie the game, and it went to OT, and then the Celtics ended up winning in OT. But in the East, though, I mean, like you said, that 1-5 is ridiculous. I think the Cavs right now, though, if I had to pick, I'd go Bucks Cavs in the East. That's not a disrespect to the Celtics. I just think if you look at those two teams, the Bucks and Giannis, who's going to cover Giannis on the Celtics? I still don't know.
I mean,
I know they beat him last year, but that was without Middleton. If you add Middleton to that lineup and that build and how strong they are and tall, it's a lengthy lineup.
I still like the Bucks. The only concern I have with the Cavs is defense. They're starting 2 undersized guards. That's it's tough to do.
The reason they do is because they can score so well.
Right.
So that's why they do it, but that's the thing.
They're an elite scoring team,
You're right.
Donovan Mitchell has been incredible this year, but it is tough to do that in the playoffs.
I just like that team is what I said. Yeah. But I think the Celtics Bucks right now, if you had to pick, but the Nets are a wild card team though, because if you get Kevin Durant fully healthy, which I know they're banged up now, they lost 2 in a row without him, but you get Kevin Durant fully healthy, that team could any team with Kevin Durant could go anywhere.
Kevin Durant, put him alongside anyone. And
I know last year in the playoffs,
he's one of the greatest. Yeah.
He is one of the best ever. I would agree with you there. Look at the Western Conference really quick. You talked about Luka. The Mavs being 24-21 with really just him for the most. I think some good pieces around, a couple pieces, but I mean, Reggie Bullock is taking some shots in the fourth quarter. And you don't really want him taking some big threes. But considering they really only have Luka, and then they have a couple other pieces that can score. Yeah. But for the most part, Luka is that one, being the 5 seed there, and the Clippers being the 6, which I don't know. We'll talk Clippers and Warriors because they were my 1 and 2 seeds going into this year. Which Clippers are the 6, Warriors are the 7. The Clippers, I would blame injuries, right? But they had every guy healthy at one point and was still losing games. I can't even blame injuries. Right now, you can, I guess, blame injuries considering, they're 3-7 in the last 10, and Paul George has been out now for 3 or 4 games. John Wall's out for the next 2 weeks. Nick Batum was in and out of the lineup. Luke Kennard's hurt. I would blame injuries, but I think the team's broken, and I love Tyronn Lue. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. But with that roster, with fully healthy roster, they're losing games. And he's sitting Robert Covington 18 of the first 39 games of the year. Just DNP did not play. And then also, you're not playing Terrence Mann in the fourth quarter against the Celtics. He only played 4 minutes in the first half. And Terrence Mann now starts, and he had 31 points yesterday. Or 2 days ago. He doesn't know what he's doing. I think it's too deep of a roster. That's the problem.
They're a weird roster. They've got a lot of sort of guys who can play the 2 to the 4 that have to be fit together in the perfect way, and it's not an easy situation to manage, especially considering how often guys are getting injured. But considering how poorly the rest of the West has done, especially the guys who we thought would be contenders, there's no excuse for them being this bad.
I would agree with you. I think you hit it dead on. They have a ton of the guys that can cover that 2 through 4. It's that center position. They only have Zoo.
And Zubac's played well.
He's solid. That's all they got. They only got Zoo. That's really about it. And he even, in that Celtics game a few weeks ago, he had 5 fouls with, I think it was 6 minutes ago. I get benching him maybe for 2 minutes. He didn't come back into a minute and a half to go, and Robert Williams was just wreaking havoc. Or was it? No, Rob actually came in right around the same time as him to come back in. I think it might have been Horford. Someone was wreaking havoc in the paint.
Yeah.
And you need a big guy in there. He's the only guy over 7 foot on the roster, really. So, I don't know. I think the Clips need to make some changes. They'll probably make a trade out of Magic because they have too much depth, and maybe that's a reason some guys aren't getting minutes because at some points in the game, you're going to have fully healthy Paul George, Reggie Jackson was the starter. Now he's actually been a DNP. He's playing now because John Wall's out. But you'd probably have Terrence Mann, Paul George, Luke Kennard, Kawhi Leonard, and Zoo. Or Batum, whether it may be in there. And Robert Covington on the bench, Norman Powell on the bench, John Wall on the bench when he's healthy.
It's a messy roster.
The team's too deep. I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
I thought it was a plus, but I think it might be a negative.
And honestly, at this point, it's who's the ball handler?
Terrence Mann. He's really a shooting guard, small forward, and he's now the new primary ball handler.
All these shooting guys who are shooting guard, small forwards, but they've really got no great
No true point guards. I think John Wall is... He's a
point option, but it's like...
he likes to shoot more than he likes to pass. Although he did have some... In the middle of the year, he had some really big games. He had 15 assists one game, but John Wall's not a consistent scorer either.
They should have signed Brunson.
Jalen Brunson. Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, it worked out.
If they had the money. I don't know if they
You were right.
But
they didn't. They barely got John Wall on a mid-level exception, like a minimum they got him at.
I think they made a couple poor roster decisions, which led them to this point, which is unfortunate because I think they're a fun team with a lot of talent. But
I'm not giving up completely, but it's tough.
Yeah.
As the Warriors, though, 22-22, and look at their away record, 5-17 away, but 17-5 at home. They play the Celtics on Thursday, so that'd be a great game in Boston.
Yeah.
I don't know about the Warriors because I think a lot of people have counted them out when they were, I think it was like 0-11 on the road. But considering if you have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson healthy, I mean, they'll make a run in the Western Conference, I'm sure, too. Yeah, they'll still be fine.
As long as Steph's healthy, I'm never counting the Warriors out.
I would agree with you.
I will just, they're getting older. And, it's like...
How many more runs do they have?
Yeah, Klay's coming off an injury. Draymond's not... He's still a great player, but not at the same level he used to be. And, the rest of the roster isn't, terrible, but by itself I don't think is going to carry them to like a high seed. But I could easily see them slipping, they're the 7th seed now.
7th seed right
sneaking
now,
up to this 5 or 6. And
I agree with you.
But we got to talk about the Kings.
I just pointed at them just so you want to say it. Here's the thing. When they made that trade for Tyrese Halliburton for DeMontis Sabonis, and Buddy Hield was obviously included in that deal, a lot of people are against the trade. I understand it. Halliburton's a great player. He can even triple-double just about any night he wants to, right? He's a great player. But you have to make a decision. The Kings had to make a decision. We have Davion Mitchell as probably the backup point guard. He was a first-round pick out of Baylor. He's not going to be the guy. He's on the team, though, but he's not going to be the starting point guard. It's De'Aaron Fox or Tyrese Halliburton. You're picking between the two of them, realistically. You can have both of them in the same game. Both of them, they ran lineups of both of them, and even with Davion Mitchell, it was really didn't work, those three-guy lineups. You had to make a decision. You already paid De'Aaron Fox. Do you want to go all in on De'Aaron, a guy you drafted, he's your longest tenured player? Yep. Go all in on De'Aaron and build a franchise around him, or Halliburton, who was good last year, but he wasn't proven like De'Aaron was, at least, because De'Aaron averaged 24 a game last year, and even the year before was getting better every year scoring-wise. And even shooting-wise, he's getting better, which De'Aaron's never been the best shooter. Like Jimmy Butler, you're not really going to expect him to shoot 35-40% from three, but if he has a great night, he can shoot well. But De'Aaron's a better mid-range and driver. But that trade for Sabonis, everyone was against it. I was with it because you look at who their big men were. It was Mohamed Bagley.
Yeah.
Mohamed Bagley was their big man. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to get a guy that can get you some boards and also cover a guy like Jokic, which Sabonis, he's a good defender, but his ability on offense, that's what that team needed. De'Aaron needed a guy to pick and roll with. He needed that.
I mean, that's what I like so much about this combo. Is like it's such a classic point guard big man combo. It's like you got your guy who can run the pick and roll. You've got this guy who's just he's a classic drive to the basket, kick it out guy. It's like they are just a fun team to watch. The concern is since getting Sabonis, their lineups have been among the worst defensively.
It's odd. It's an odd lineup like Harrison Barnes.
Yes.
Like it's three, but he's a four. Like it's. And obviously Rashawn Holmes is good, but
they're a weird lineup, but like just the combo of De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, it's such a good combo. They have such natural chemistry in the way they play. Like
Definitely.
It's just a great combo.
We've
been fans of De'Aaron Fox.
Oh, since freshman year we were talking about
drafted.
him. We were with him freshman year. We were big fans.
And finally, he's getting the respect he deserves.
And the Kings, I mean, 24-18 being where they're at, 7-3, and they've won 4 in a row now.
Best team in California.
I mean, right now, yeah. Imagine the Warriors probably wake up, which I don't think they're going to... I don't know. I mean, even if they were to jump up there, the Kings where they're at right now is elite. But yeah, the Lakers are toast, and I don't know if the Clippers really are going to get up there. We'll see. I mean, it's a long season. I would agree with you. Right now, they are the best team in California. And that's the thing with that Kings team. They have a great lineup, I'd say, offensively, too. I mean, they can shoot you out the gym. Malik Monk can drill threes. I mean, I love having him and De'Aaron. Speaking about Jamar Chase being with Burrow, and then obviously having Travis Etienne with Trevor Lawrence, you have Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox, best friends in college, and we're college teammates being on the same team. So offensively, they score a ton of points, and I mean, even in clutch moments, they play good defense as well. But I would agree the lineup combinations aren't the best, but maybe you figure that out over the season. Brown's a great coach. Maybe figure that out.
I mean, and I think they have enough flexibility that they could maybe make a trade or like small signings to like figure that out. I don't think it's like they're locked in the same way the Clippers are.
I would agree with you. Yeah,
which is really
the Clippers are in win now mode. They're in win now mode.
The Clippers don't really have the flexibility with their roster that the Kings do. So
and the Kings have a future. I mean, honestly, the Clippers probably realistically got to win in the next 2 years, right? 2 to 3 years with Paul George and Kawhi, I'd imagine. 2 years, and then after that, 5 years, the Clippers are going to probably be toast. But
those guys are getting old too.
That's the thing; those guys are getting old. I think the Clippers 5 years now from a toast, probably. I mean, we'll see who's still there, Terrence Mann and stuff. But considering what they have now, that team's built to win right now. Norman Powell, Robert Covington, Nick Batum, John Wall,
they're primarily players.
Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. 7 or 8 of those guys we just named. Besides Luke Kennard, even Reggie Jackson, he's built to win now because he's not going to play probably in 5 years. Luke Kennard, Terrence Mann, 2 of, if not the only players on that team, and Brandon Boston's starting to get some minutes.
Yeah.
But 3 of those guys there, Amir Coffey maybe, I know he was a G League guy, 2-way player, gets some minutes every now and then. He even started on Sunday, if they play tonight against, I think it's the Rockets. Or they just played the Rockets, the Clippers. But considering, though, where that team's going, they play the Sixers tonight. Considering where the team's going, we just named 9 guys that are in win now mode in the next 2 to 3 years. So you got to win now with that team. And I think it ultimately comes down to getting health and then maybe figuring out the lineups. I don't know, but
we'll see.
We'll see, but
it's funny, we haven't even talked about the top teams in the last.
The Nuggets, the Grizzlies,
I was going to say, we've just been talking
the average teams. Yeah. The Mavs, the Clippers, and the Warriors we got into.
I mean, I have to be honest, looking at the West, like, I don't see any of these teams taking on the Celtics or the Bucks.
I would probably agree with you there in a 7-game series. 7-game series, I'd still take those teams.
I love Jokic. I mean, he's...
Stud.
One of the most fun players to watch. Like, probably one of the most unique players we've ever seen.
Talent level is just offensively, defensively. He gives you anything he needs.
Incredible. I don't know if the Nuggets have enough talent around him to win it all. I would love to see it.
I think here's the thing. I watched that game against the Clippers where they blew out the Clippers. They're up 35 at half. They win that game by 33 or 40 at half, whatever it was. It was a ridiculous night. That was actually a turning point for me in the season. Clippers. I was like, this team, which it was a turning point, in my opinion, of the Nuggets, too. Because other than the Nuggets, I think they're a good team, just like you were saying. I still don't know if they can win an NBA Finals this year, which obviously for the Joker, obviously you'd hope because he's such a great talent. You want those guys to win. Just like Giannis, you want to see greatness win. But I don't know. I thought that game for the Clippers, I think that was a turning point because you had everyone playing and no one cared except Terrence Mann. No one cared. And the Nuggets were shooting threes just out the gym. Jamal Murray was drilling threes. Yeah. Bones Highland was drilling threes. Jokic, I mean, he could shoot. He only had 5 or 6 points in that game. He even shot a couple nice shots. And it was a tough game. And I don't know, I think that was a turning point, in my opinion, of the Nuggets, too, because I thought they were just a good team. I thought the Clippers had the better lineup, but the Clippers could not run with them in transition. And that's another thing. The Clippers are getting older, too, which they're not really a transition team anymore, the Clippers.
No.
Which is 2 years ago could have been, but could have been different 2 years ago because they were high-flying in that 2021 West Conference Finals run. But
Kawhi and Paul George in their prime are like 2 of the most athletic guys in the NBA.
Best 2-way players in the league, too. Best two-way players. But in one of the team we want to mention here, I want to mention the Grizzlies, John Morant, 10 in a row. You see that dunk the other night?
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my. Dude, I don't even know how do you go that far back but not lose the ball? How do you go that far back in a game, too? It's like even doing it in warm-ups would be nuts, like in a layup line, but that team might be legit, honestly. Which I don't know if it's enough to win the NBA Finals right now, but I think they're a legit team to win a series or two in the playoffs.
They have a lot of
young talent. Desmond Bane's good. Jaren Jackson, both of them probably grow over the next year or two, which Ja made a huge jump from, if you look at what Ja was his rookie year to now, year 2 or 3 years now.
Year 1 to year 2 even was
huge. And then 2 to 3 is even bigger, and look at him now. I don't know if that team is win the NBA Finals right now, but I think they can at least win a series or two, which last year it was, without Ja, they were somehow winning some games, but you knew that team wasn't really the team they were now.
Yes.
30-13 in the West, being tied for the first seed with the Nuggets.
I'm not going to say too much about the Pelicans, although I will say that if Zion is healthy...
That's a difference.
Big if. I do think they are the best team in the West. I think they were probably my pick to win the West. I think just 1 through 5, they've got so much talent, and I struggle to see another team putting it together enough in the playoffs to stop them.
Think about how good they are right now, right? We're looking at this team that's 26 and 18. You add Zion.
Right. And I don't
know what his timeline is, really. You never know with that guy. With those types of players, you never know. Paul George is out. You know if it's a 1 week thing or 4 weeks or 6 weeks.
It's just frustrating because it's not Zion's fault that he's, that he's the size
injured.
He is.
It's just that big, yeah.
It's like, it's not like he's out of shape or anything. He's just a freakishly large man.
the luck of it.
know,
He's such a terrific talent, though.
Yeah.
But we did give a whole breakdown of the NBA, which I loved.
Yeah.
Would we talk Yankees second, or do you want to just jump in and just talk to, say, three athletes? Talk Yankees for a second if you want. It's up to you. Or we can call it too.
Save
something?
We should call it. I think,
save something.
Yeah, we
have a great run, though,
MLB,
here.
Yeah.
We'll do an MLB preview, maybe, whenever we get some more signings, maybe in a couple weeks or two. And the last of, which is not many free agents left, but then the last of everything's over with, and you're looking at rosters right for spring training. We do something. Right. But, so, which I did with all my friends, 3 favorite hometown athletes. My 3 were all Boston guys. Isaiah Thomas was, I can't remember if he's first or second. It was Manny Ramirez, Isaiah Thomas, and then I had, I forget who the third one was. Let me try to remember. Alex Verdugo, because I had a current player, and I had some old players too.
Yeah.
I had some old players in there too. I love Verdugo. I had a current player as my favorite, then a just legend and Manny, and then one in the last 5 years. It can be any. It can be 3 current or past, but 3 Yankees, Giants, Knicks, whatever it may be.
I'm going to pick one from each sport, try to mix it up a little bit.
So
we'll start with Carmelo Anthony. A lot of Knicks fans don't have a super high opinion of Carmelo Anthony. I love Melo. He made the team relevant for the only point they've been relevant in my life up until now. Made the playoffs, but also New York sports legend, took Syracuse to a national championship and won.
Drove it.
Love the orange, so he's got to be one of my favorites. Number 2, I'm going to go with CeCe Sabathia.
Nice. I like that.
Not exactly, he's not a lifer like most Yankee legends are, but I think great player, last World Series.
2009.
He was a key member of it. Incredible story, recovering from alcoholism and having a late career resurgence. I mean, just an inspiring guy. And, picking Giants is tough.
It's hard. That was my tough thing. I had to do that. I just did hometown teams, which technically the Giants are my hometown team. Technically, I was never a Patriots fan. So
I think it's
next
hard,
time I do it, I'll fix it.
It's hard to go wrong with Strahan.
Legend.
Love Strahan. Greatest defensive end to ever play for the Giants. Super cool dude.
Mm-hmm.
I've had family friends that have met him and said that he's just as cool in real life as he is on TV.
Awesome.
And team captain. Heart of the 2007.
2007. I was just gonna say 2007.
What more could you ask for?
And obviously molded Justin Tuck into that player that he was in 2011. Tuck was there. Both.
Yeah, the father of that great defensive line with Osi Umenyiora and Justin
Kiwanuka.
Yep.
Matthias Kiwanuka, former BC Eagle too.
I did not.
He went to BC. Yeah. Kiwanuka.
Actually, you know what? Honorable mention. Chris Snee, also BC Eagle, and son-in-law of Tom Coughlin.
He is legend. And I think he's an offensive assistant or something at BC. So now this year I think they signed him to something right before this past season, so our senior year, like maybe September, August. But
we're gonna
legend.
If either of us run into him on campus, we'll be begging him to come on.
We should. I never saw him on campus. I saw him at one of the games where some of the staff members walk up to maybe I don't know where the box is where OCs are calling plays. I don't know. But he walked through the stands and just walked by, but it was mid-game, right for half. I was I'm not going to bother him, dude. He's probably he's got to do his job.
Yeah,
BC wasn't winning the game too much. No. It was against Duke. We were losing. So I was like, you know what? Probably not going to win the game. Didn't look like a good one.
Not a good time to bother him.
He's got to focus.
Shout out Chris Snee, though.
Snee, the legend. Shout out the Giants, honestly. Shout out all BC players that played for the Giants. Yes. Andre Williams, John Hillman, is a good amount of them. Chris Snee, Mark Herzlich, it's another one there.
Yeah.
A good amount of them.
Tom
Coughlin, legend.
Yeah.
BC legend in coaching. He's one of the best NFL coaches ever, too, I would say. Tom Coughlin as well.
I think
he's up there. He beat Belichick twice in the Super Bowl, so can't discredit that.
Yeah.
Can't do it. But, Dylan, thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure talking sports for an hour and 53 minutes. Jeez. Think about that. We do it for lunch for an hour and a half, usually an hour and 15 minutes, but hour and 52, here we are. This is what we do every single time we get lunch. Just no agenda, just talk sports.
Yeah.
Come in and we just talk sports. So, Dylan, a pleasure having you come on. Thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it. You'll be back on again anytime you want. So,
right. Thanks for having me.
Studio's always here. Thank you, Dylan. And thank you guys, everyone, for taking the time to listen to this. As always, I appreciate it. Going to give a few quick shout-outs like I always do. Shout out to the Keith family. Shout out to the Loftus family. Thank you guys for always listening. Shout out to Auntie Lisa. Shout out to my whole family, all of you guys listening all the time, my family and friends. I appreciate it. Shout out to the O'Malley family. It does mean a lot. You guys always listening in, so thank you. As always, I'll be back on probably next week, which I'm not really sure. My schedule's been flipping around. Last semester was all over the place, but I think I should be Tuesdays, 7 o'clock. So anytime Tuesday, 7, anything happens, you want to come in and talk, Dill, you're more than welcome. But thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. Hope you guys have a good one. Take care and stay safe. Thank you.